Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just hey, ETT, what's up, man? Just back with the usual. Just want to go through a chapter in Matthew and just read through it. And if you have anything you want to talk about, ETT and others, I think we're living in those days, man. I just posted a video about Dr. John D, his peer-to-peer experiment. Very rigorous setup, very open, inviting people from both sides. It's, again, we don't necessarily say that one thing is conclusive, but I just the energy and the fervor surrounding flat Earth to me is really cool. I'm going to start posting more tests that I would be comfortable with. And was able to invest. Oh, nice, dude. Yeah. Stay hydrated, ETT, man. We need more truth out there in the world. So we got to keep pushing, man. There's I think as the truth becomes more and more real for me and others, we have to think that there's going to be more and more resistance, not just with YouTube, but people in our family, people at work. I was getting a text earlier about a wedding coming up, and it's like everything in the Bible is happening. Like people are giving unto marriage, and everything's hunky dory, and in my mind everything is unraveling. I saw a clip earlier of layoffs in Lordstown, Ohio. I can't remember if it was 1,200 or 1,400 employees. That's a big hit. That's a huge. That's a big number for any town to absorb, much less a relatively, I'm assuming, small town like that. So, just American economy is certainly not on the rise. No one would argue that. And the amount of money that's been infused into the pockets of people is enough for many, many generations. I haven't gone through the calculations. But it would be an interesting video that I might do, is like, how much money do all Americans have, and really how much would actually be needed in a normal functioning economy without money printing and then, a wealth gap. It would be interesting. I have a feeling it's many, many generations. But Manny, what's up? The mind of Manny? Is that still Manny P, or are you somebody else? What's up, man? Tides tip in my favor. Had few spare change I found in a box. No, that's cool, dude. I saw your video, ETT, about the Let Go app, and I do have a couple things that I can use that app for. So it looks, more and more people, man, are living in that way. Just having to count the cost, and all that stuff. So. Yeah, ETT, I'd be curious. If I remember to do it, man, I'll run the numbers. It's hard to get exact, precise data because obviously we're at the mercy of what central banks tell us. And, it may or may not be correct. People talk about dark pools and all this different stuff. And so we don't know the exact number of currency units that there are worldwide. But yeah, I mean, you're probably not that far from the truth, stating that if it were evenly distributed, it would be, a significant number per person. Yeah, that's that might come up, man, when I read Matthew 13. But I just want to let people know, first off, if anybody tried to email me from my banner email, my shirag.patel@ricealumni.net. I tried to send a test email to myself today, and I was like, why didn't it come? And then I went onto Rice's website, and it looks like they discontinued those ones, and they have another suffix that they use now. And so I applied for that one. But so I apologize if anybody's tried to reach out to me with that email. if you go on my channel and the About section and then click my email, I believe it's open for everybody. So just use that one if you ever want to reach out about flat Earth or biblical stuff or golf, you know, or whatever you want to talk about. But I apologize. I didn't realize that Rice alumni is no longer forwarding to my Gmail. So I just put my Gmail address there. And, you know, I've been a little bit more active in some of the flat Earth discussions, in particular, Jose, his hangout, and just trying to come up with tests, brainstorm tests. And then, you know, one day if I get into a position where I have time and I feel comfortable that I would be able to execute a test, you know, I'll let you guys know if I ever get to that level. But I just want to run the tests by the ballers, especially the engineers and the science physics people, just to get their feedback. But I mean, there's literally hundreds and thousands of different tests that could all be done literally simultaneously, you know, with the technology that we have. And again, like the fervor on both sides. So, you know, I don't think it's going to take long for a very, very solid body of tests to be out there and reproducible that, you know, can kind of, we can move past this debate. And in my opinion, get to the supernatural. So I'm going to go through Matthew 13. I'll try and go through it fairly quick. And then if you guys have any questions or comments, you know, just chime in, you know, if you have anything to share or want to dialogue with me. Obviously, you know, I like the feedback and like hearing from you guys. And Mies Kang, what's up, dude? Good to see you. Yeah, dude, ETT, man, thanks for reminding me. Man, so I was out 2 nights ago in downtown Houston, and there was a street preacher, and then there was another gentleman handing out, man, I wish I still kept the card. I think I threw it away. But two gentlemen talking about the Bible, preaching the Bible. And I had a couple glasses of wine, to be honest. So I was a little bit more, I don't know, energetic maybe. I don't know. But at that time, so I was like, you know, wanted to talk. And I was, you know, I love when people are out preaching. I like talking to them. But we started talking, and I was kind of just comparing notes, because I just assume people that preach like that are more than likely either very, very strict evangelicals, like, you know, you need Jesus in your life or else you're going to hell, or end times. And so, you know, I know that, you know, ETT does that, and others, and the Hebrews and all that. But so I went up to the guy and I started talking to him, and I was just asking him a couple of their doctrinal beliefs. And then I went through, like, do you know Jesus is black? You know, because to me, it's a very, very easy thing to prove. The flat earth takes a little bit more effort. And I just kind of want to see where their spirit is with that. And I took him through all the verses, you know, Job and Song of Solomon and Jeremiah. You know, I was on my phone, so I was like giving him everything. And he's like, you need to repent. he's telling me that I need to repent because I was like reading out of the Bible that Jesus is a black man. And I was like, you know, it's kind of, to me, again, you know, I'm not saying that people, that's the necessary truth for salvation. I don't make those kind of calls, but it's just, to me, becoming more and more clear that we're at the end, because even people who are truthers resist the truth. And again, I'm not passing a judgment on this person. I have no idea. He could be 100 times higher than me in the kingdom, and I will not get in, or there might not even be a kingdom. So you guys know all of these things that we have to be humble about. I have to be humble about. But I'm just starting to realize more and more that the truthers are resisting truth. And then from the US economy perspective, I'm also starting to think that it's going to be ugly soon, just because the people that are struggling are not talking about it. And so that, to me, just doesn't make sense. You know, it's like, it's even people who are being noticeably and excessively exploited are silent on it, you know. And like, I'm not even really that exploited currently. I felt this way generally, obviously, throughout my life, especially with flat Earth. But I'm complaining, like it's boring, and I don't like being watched at work. I don't like getting paid peanuts, and with little tokens, and being watched until 5 o'clock, and all that kind of stuff. And like, there's people who have it like 10 times worse, and they're not complaining, and there's stores closing all over the place and all that. So to me, that's again stronger evidence that God is behind this, because only He can orchestrate something like that. Like, how can God make people who are being oppressed not say anything? It's like, and this will sound insensitive, but even like slavery that's existed throughout the entire human history, and in particular with who I feel are the biblical Jews on cargo slave ships. To me, only God can make somebody go through that, because that's just inhumane. Like, I'm just thinking in my mind, what would motivate a person to think that they would want to go through that and not, take their own life? Like, what are they planning to do when they know that a mass group of people are being exploited in that way and brutalized? And so, again, I'm not trying to trivialize their situation and their pain. Everything is part of God's plan and His narrative. But in my opinion, I'm extremely thankful, and the people I hope that follow my channel, like we are fortunate that God has given us a clear mind. He's helped us see things, and I believe that's going to come up in the verse that I read. Yeah, I will in Matthew 13. Like, let's be very thankful. Obviously it's not the best situation, but man, like, at least we can see the deception. We can see things, and God has given us the ability to discern certain things. And then again, to me, all this stuff increases the probability that we're in the end times, and it's the God of the Bible that's architecting it. I would have went up to that brother, my friend, your strike was weak. I made my old friend Andrew Ashby, you mentioned in videos, make 5,000 visual X in front of them. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's plainly written. It's like even flat Earth Christian ballers, that is probably one of the strongest evidences for me personally that it's true, that it's a flat Earth, because it's not logical that people would read those verses, the many of them, I think there's hundreds, and just be like, oh no, that's poetry. You can't, God's not going to tell us what the shape is, as if they know what God's going to share. Like, no, God's going to tell us everything, but He's not going to tell us what we're standing on in our surroundings. Like, no, that's too much information. Like, of course God's going to give us a way to find out our surroundings and all that kind of stuff. And so those to me are actually more qualitative proofs. But whenever somebody's uncomfortable about certain topics, to me, in this day and age that we live in, either it's absolutely absurd or it's true. You're onto something. If there's a large group of Christians who don't want to talk about things like the mark of the beast, to me, that means either the mark of the beast is absolutely absurd, which we know that it's not because it's out in mainstream now, or it's going to happen. To me, that's the biggest proof. It's not people outside of quote unquote Christianity that I look to for that being a certainty. I know Jesus is black because I go up to a majority of Christians and they don't want to hear it, and I'm not doing it to make fun of people or to like say that I'm high and mighty. It's just a fact. It's something that people should know, again, to unlock other aspects of the Bible, and that type of thing. So, we're living either in some very, very strange and confusing days, or, things are winding down. Yeah. Those are good ones in Ecclesiastes, like, and the Hebrews bring that out a lot. Like oppression makes a wise man mad and stuff like that. And so, God oppressed us for a time, but we are thankful, and I hope we can all reaffirm to one another that He's given us the ability to see, not everything, of course, but we can see more of the deception. I see the deception on the Ball Earth side. I'm trying to be more putting my engineering hat on and not calling everybody a Freemason and, a shill and all that. I'm trying to be more productive just so I can, it's better for me, but also to like get to a test for myself and other people. But it's very clear to those who can see that certain people are operating in a deceptive way, and it doesn't take much research. You know, it literally just takes like, what is their reaction? This person told me to repent because I was reading that Job is black in the Bible. Like, it literally just says my skin is black, and he was telling me to repent. So, you know, I mean, that's backwards. You know, like it's different if I was reading a scripture and I was saying that, no, this happened in 1914, and, you know, this person did this, and all, you know, you got to go and dig and do research and all that. But they're literally saying my skin is black upon me. You know, it's like, what else, what interpretation, what poetry do you need? You know, like the Job, Solomon, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Moses, these are all black men. Jesus Christ, he's a black man, you know, and that's not everybody will see that, literally, you know, and not everybody will appreciate it. And that's a stumbling block for a lot of people. I think spiritual people, again, it took me a little while to digest that truth because I was so programmed with blonde hair, blue-eyed Jesus. But we have to celebrate all aspects of who Jesus Christ is. And spiritual people know that the skin color, anything physical, and the body is temporary. So that is just his physical representation on earth. None of those things get preserved in the spirit world, in my opinion, to any like consistent way. You know, like a spirit is not a black person or an Indian person or a white person or whatever. And so to me, that's just a stumbling block for a lot of people to not worship the God of this Bible. And that's okay. You know, we don't have to convince people or get angry or whatever. We're just reading out of this book. And so I left my church because they refused to discuss any of this stuff. It was just happy Hyundais. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Mies Kang, dude. I went through that for many, many years. And I hope that it served a purpose for both of us, you know, to kind of see the way things should not be, but how subtle the deception is. I always felt a little bit uncomfortable, not like people were evil necessarily, but it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like anything related to the Bible. And I'm not saying everybody was bad, but it didn't feel right for many years for me. Someone came on the comment board, said Mark of the Beast is money. Yeah, someone came into this hangout and said that once back in the day. And so these deceptions are starting to be stupid, actually. Like, they're not even like intelligent. It's better just to say that the mark of the beast will be in the future, or it's already happened, than to make a statement like it's money. That's like just blatantly ridiculous. You know, I have more respect for somebody who just says, I don't think it'll happen, or the Bible is just being symbolic or poetic, or it happened in the past, you know, which obviously is not true, but that doesn't make sense. You know, how can rich and poor be tagged with money? You know, it's like that makes absolutely no sense. The mark of the beast is to restrict people from commerce, not the very fluid that is used for commerce. The mark of the beast has to be a technical thing, you know, I believe a technical thing to restrict access to money. So now they're going so far, cut up clips to make look like we're saying. Yeah, I mean, yeah, dude, ETT, that's what I was saying, man. I mean, the truth is going to start getting, you know, to me, if this thing keeps getting amplified and the Bible's true, you know, the temperature is going to start increasing, you know, and we have to brace ourselves for that in whatever way that it affects us personally. But, you know, the people who are resisting truth, and may we not be one of them, they're not just going to go away. You know, there's too many people who don't want the Bible to be true, who don't even want Jesus to be black, who don't want the mark of the beast to be taught, who don't want America to be Babylon, who don't want the earth to be flat. They don't want that stuff. You know, they want what the government is pushing, and that's all they're allowed to push, you know, and that's the world that we live in. Do you know if there had been any genetic tests on ancient 2,000-plus-year-old remains in the Israel? No, I'm not sure, actually. To me, again, I think that this is not that big of a deal. I'm not sure, Kazin, if you're referring anything related to genetic as in, like, you know, skin color and those kind of things. But ancestry and all that, to me, it's not even that relevant. I'm not saying that it's not important that Jesus is black, because obviously I mentioned it, but to me, all it does from a day-to-day perspective is it shifts the end times away from Israel to America. You know, again, even if you're a so-called Negro, that doesn't mean that you're a Jew. And you could be the most pale person on the face of the earth. That doesn't mean that you're not a Jew either. You could be, you know. There are dark-skinned people who've had albino and light-skinned offspring, you know, and then they don't just sit in the corner. They have kids, and then they have generations and generations that follow. And then so God's people will look like everybody. That's a fact. And I'm not saying that to sound like my hands, like I control anything, but it's just a fact. God's children in this day are people that are going to love truth, love the truth of God, what he did on the cross, that he is merciful to the humble. He resists the proud. He is a God who will bring judgment to the world. And, you know, all these characteristics, all these things that that Jesus liked, you know, when he interacted with people, it's nothing more than that, but it's at least that, you know, and that's a lot, you know. And getting into the genealogies and the Hebrews, I would say, go way too far on that. And it's contradictory because they don't have the records to confirm that. So it's just literally a waste of time. It's just literally, and I'm convicting myself here too, because like even me going and calling conspiracy cats and fight the flat earth Masons, that's also a waste of time. So I need to stop doing that as much, or turn that faucet off, and put my engineering hat on. And you know, they could be part of our fold, you know, and I could not be part of the fold. We don't know, like anything. I could be sitting here, put Bible verses every live stream every Saturday, and then God can, if he wants to, play with my mind, which is his, and just make me do whatever, you know. And I could be like starting you know, taking a chip in every hand and in my forehead and putting it in my teeth, and, you know, conspiracy cats may not, you know. And then so I have to be more careful about that. But obviously, again, I firmly, as of now, I have no intention of taking the mark of the beast. And like I said, I don't even want to be around when that stuff is anywhere near my zip code. And I urge people to consider the reality that we might be living in those times, that it is coming out, and understand that is an incredibly nefarious agenda. And if you are a spiritual person, you will understand this, that God is doing it, and he's testing us to see what we'll fall for, and don't fall for that, because he's making it obvious. Like, if you are that much of a degenerate, and I'm speaking to myself, if we are that much of a degenerate that we do not believe in an afterlife, we don't think that God can turn this table into a human. God can do anything. He can turn our body into whatever he wants after we die. He can literally do whatever he wants. He could preserve us. He can make us go away. He can forget. He can erase us from the minds of every person, and people will be like, no, Shrek didn't exist. God can literally do whatever he wants. And so the Bible says that to not take the mark of the beast. That's what it says. If the government forces us to do anything within our body in order to buy and sell, the Bible explicitly says, do not do it. And those who do, he will deal with them directly. And we do not want to be part of that. I don't even want to see that happen. I don't want to see other people get burned. I just want to be away from people like that. And yeah, who knows who's to say? We all may not. We don't know, you know, and yeah, and God, that's the problem. And I have to catch myself too, is like, if I'm too rah and too puffed up, and I've said this many times, God will embarrass us. And we don't want God to make an example out of us. And we recommend that other people don't test the God of this Bible. Just from what I know now, more so, we just don't want to do that. It's just a bad idea, bad idea. And I think if the Bible tells us anything of human history, it's like people who've done that and have not succeeded, you know. And even people who do try and honor God, they still also get punished. So, you know, that's where it's very, very difficult to understand the God of this book. But you know, we'll try here I'll go Matthew 13, and then let me know if you guys have any thoughts or any verses related to this. So Matthew 13 reads, the same day Jesus went out of the house and sat by the seaside, and great multitudes were gathered together unto him, so that he went into a ship and sat, and the whole multitude stood on the shore. And he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, behold, a sower went forth to sow. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Some fell up upon stony places where they had not much earth, and forthwith they sprung up because they had no deepness of earth. And when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. I thought it's interesting, not to make this a flat earth thing, but I think it's cool that he's like, the sun was up, you know. And so in our understanding now more than ever, people who are flat earthers, we know that the sun is above the earth. It's up. And, you know, the saying, there's nothing new under the sun. And so the sun is not like beside us, you know, like in the heliocentric model, where we're spinning and then the sun is kind of, you know, over to the side. It's always above. It's up. And so verse 7 reads, and some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. But others fell into good ground and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30-fold. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. So this is a term that Jesus or Yahushua uses a lot, you know, and he doesn't, and I'm speaking to myself here, he would never say something in an empty way, because he knew that obviously these things would get recorded and people would hang off of his words, but he's not a gossip. He's not a person who just talks to fill the air. Whatever he says to people, he'll get right to the heart, you know. And ETT brought out a verse last week, a great one, how the Bible, the word, the truth cuts right, and you know, cuts like a sword, you know. That's the way it's described. And so when Jesus says, who hath ears to hear, let him hear, we're going to read a little bit down the road what he means by that, and how much of a gift that is, that we're even able to hear some of the things that he shares. Hey, Voynich, what's up, man? Mr. Menza, good to see you guys. They will hunt down the mark deniers. Yeah, I think to me, it's very, very unlikely that it will not happen in the next 5 years. And if it doesn't, to me, again, it doesn't necessarily mean the Bible is not true. I just think it's for a different generation. That's the way I see it. So for me to say, you know, like the Bible's not true and I'm going to burn it, it's a little bit of theatrics, but that's just looking in my lifetime. That means the Bible was not authoring the narrative of the evil that I've experienced, but, you know, who am I? You know, I'm just, you know, a person. So that's just me with my little jab, I guess. But yeah, I mean, for like, just with the way the world is, the ecosystem in the world economically, and especially with the resistance to the truth community, but also within the truth community, to me, it's looking like, you know, we're in for some very interesting days here in America and worldwide. So in 9, he says, again, who hath ears to hear, let him hear. I just like when he says that. That's great. And the disciples came and said unto him, why speakest thou unto them in parables? He answered and said unto them, because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. So there's a very distinct delineation between certain people who, if you imagine, like almost like if you had a hearing aid or some kind of language, you know, a different language that only certain people can hear. And this language, the Bible says, is truth. This is the language of God. God is only able to speak truth, even if he's using lies to deceive. That's very difficult for people to understand. They will nitpick us in the Bible about that, but that's the fact. You know, if people don't like being conditioned by God, well, you're not being conditioned by God then. You know, and I'm not trying to be rude, but like, if you don't like it, then it's not for you. You're not being conditioned by God. If you don't like God conditioning you to be more like him so you can remain in his presence, then it's not happening. You know, we want God to do that, and may he do it gently as much as he can. It's not funny, but we don't want, you know, we don't want his wrath or him to be angry or anything at us, for sure. So yeah, it's only given to a certain group of people. Whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that he hath. So all these people that we look who have $500 million, $500 trillion wealth, all that stuff's going to perish. That is going to be absolutely nothing, you know, and especially if the Bible comes true and God starts literally like annihilating places with his missiles, his technology that he's given people, all that stuff's going to come to naught. And these verses will literally come true. Those things will literally be taken away from them, from us, if we hoard them. Therefore speak I to them in parables, because they seeing not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. And in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Esaias, which said, by hearing ye shall hear and shall not understand, and seeing ye shall see and shall not perceive. I'm seeing this more and more. Like you, and I use my parents, not to throw them under the bus, but like they will not talk about anything serious. Like I'm not even talking about flat earth. Like they will not talk about anything against the government. They will not talk about how we're all being worked to the bone, how we're not, a lot of us are just bored, you know, and I don't know how to say that in a different way. And it becomes even worse for people who are flat earthers or who have insight into the spirit world, because we know that someone architected it and he's smart, you know, and we would enjoy being around somebody like that. So it's like we have a lot of issues with the way the world is right now, but I can sense that just certain people are not allowed to go there. Like they're not allowed to talk about it. They don't want the words to go into their brain, and they don't want to register flat earth, microchips, stock market manipulation, education system, money printing. Like those terms are not even allowed to like enter into their brain. All right, ETT dude, I'll get to those three in a second, man. Those look good. Okay, and then reading on in 15, for this people's heart is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes have closed, lest at any time they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, and should understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I should heal them. So this is an amazing thing. It's like this truth, all these things, seeing God, seeing that he's a black man, seeing that he's real, seeing the earth that he's created, seeing all these different things are the precursor, are the foundation for God to then first give us more things to see. We want to see more of him and experience more of him, but Jesus here says, and I should also heal them. And I think a lot of us, you know, and I hope that people have not gone through too much in their life, but a lot of people have. You just have to turn on the news, even if a lot of it is fake. The turmoil in the world is very, very evident. And so, you know, we need healing. We've seen a lot of things that we don't want to see. We've experienced things we don't ever want to experience again. And we've inflicted things on people that we don't ever want to do again. You know, quite frankly, we need God to redeem those experiences, heal them, and help us ensure that we never have stuff like that again. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For verily I say unto you that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which ye see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which ye hear, and have not heard them. Hear ye therefore the parable of the sower. When anyone heareth the word of the kingdom, and understand it not, then cometh the wicked one, and catcheth away that which was sown in their heart. This is he which receiveth seed by the wayside. So we can see that, you know, Jesus is alluding to, or actually directly stating, that every person is kind of approached with the truth. And, you know, that they're, you know, again, it's a difficult thing to understand because it's predetermined, but here he's alluding to the fact that, you know, everybody is given the opportunity to hear the word. But he that receiveth the seed in stony places, the same is he that heareth the word, and anon with joy receiveth it. So they don't receive it. Yet hath he not root in himself, but dureth for a while. For when tribulation or persecution ariseth because of the word, by and by he is offended. So this is an amazing thing. Like, Yahushua gets right to the heart of it. He's like, he uses this term by and by. He's like, by and by he is offended. There is no reason for anybody to be offended that Jesus Christ is a black man. That is not an offensive thing. There's no reason to be offended by that. He's just black. That's what it is. He's dark skinned, and that's what it is. You know, there's nothing to be offended about. We know that the condition of quote unquote black people is they're a very low state in the world. Their level of poverty to me is different because it's more than poverty. It's an embarrassment. He is actually outright embarrassing them. And I'm not saying every single one, and I'm not trying to, you know, disrespect people and their condition, but I've lived in East Harlem. I've lived in New York, and I see the quote unquote ghettos, and you don't have to even live in them to know, like, it's a different kind of punishment. And so, but this is the way God is. God makes it makes sense that the God of this Bible would make his narrative difficult to believe. And if we want God to open up our minds more to understand these things, because he only reveals these things to the childlike. If we have our own biases and our own narrative, we're acting like God then. You know, we're not allowed to do that. God sets the narrative. We have to, like, literally take up a seat if he gives us one, and worship him, you know, and we want to be like him. We want to hear more of what he says. We want to see more of what he sees. We want to be like him. And to be quite honest, it's not like it's how could it be worse than this? So, you know, it makes absolutely no sense. Like, you know, it's obvious in the days that we live in now, but even people with tremendous wealth, it makes no sense for anybody to hoard it, because from a very practical perspective, it will decay. But it would be much better to be in the presence of the entity that created that wealth in the first place. So we can't be offended by the truth. Or here in 19 says, the word of the kingdom. You know, we can't be offended by that. We have to have faith that that is a reality, that our life is not simply the physical, that there is this thing called the kingdom of heaven, where truth and righteousness and love reign. He also that receiveth seed among the thorns is he that heareth the word, and the cares of the world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becometh unfruitful. And so we're all capable of that. Anybody who reads this story, these verses, and myself included, and just looks at the Rothschilds and says, oh, look at those guys. No, this is meant for us. You know, we have been duped into believing this to some degree, some more than others. John the Baptist, to me personally, not at all, or very, very little. But everybody has been deceived of this to some extent, especially if we're living in the times that we live in now. It's just the Rothschilds and the bankers. It's more obvious. But even us, even if it's for a moment, we've been seduced by this. And, you know, women, money, cars, a house, all these kind of things. And, you know, we don't want to remain in that place. I think that's the biggest thing that I've noticed for me in the last year or two, is like flat earth and other truths have now literally popped this ball, literally, but like popped that desire for all those things. And the thing that's incredible for me, people, I think, look at me, and I'm not trying to get pity, but just to explain my stance, people look at me and they're like, the guy's depressed, you know, and he's just lifeless and all that. But the reality is, if I'm being honest, that bubble that I had was filled with like school, career, you know, marriage, you know, women, money, and all that. And that's a big chunk of my life. Like, the only thing that's really left was like golf, like recreation, leisure, some other things, like a small percent. But like the flat earth and all these different things about the Bible coming true, mark of the beast, popped that bubble, and it left like 5%. You know, and it's like, I mean, I'm just picking up. I'm thankful, because I would rather know the truth than be living in darkness. And as the Bible says here, you know, being seduced by the deceitfulness of the riches. But, you know, that's a big chunk of my life that really, you know, a major sort of fuel and purpose for living that popped, you know, and like fairly quickly, like, I think all these stock market bubbles are going to start popping like that soon too, but we'll see. But he that receives seed into the good ground is he that heareth the word and understand it, which also beareth fruit and bring forth some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. So this is a very difficult thing because we need money to survive. And just because you're rich doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad person. So it's a difficult thing to understand what Jesus is saying, what the fruit will exactly look like, because just because a person has a lot of money doesn't mean that they've been deceived by the deceitfulness of riches. They could just have money, and whatever. And so a nice car, but he's getting at obviously something, deeper, but clinging to it. And to me, it's just a lack of acknowledgement of the spirit world, because again, we don't know everything about the spirit world or if there is even one, but having faith in a spirit world kind of removes that stickiness, for lack of a better term, to those things like money, cars. You still have them. We still need money to live. And the Bible says that you're not going to need money. You're actually going to first need the mark of the beast to live, and then money. And people are already running out of money. So it's like, to me, it really doesn't make sense to take the mark of the beast. But the Bible prophesies that, you're going to not just need money in an already satanic system. You're going to need to be embedded with a microchip. But you need these things to survive. So they're not necessarily in and of themselves evil. To me, it's just a lack of acknowledgement that there's a spirit world, and it's not for everybody to know that. Like, I'll be honest, for many, many years, up to about Russian vids, flat earth timeframe, 2014, 15, 16, I was religious, like I read the Bible and went to church, but I didn't genuinely appreciate the fact that there's a spirit world. Whereas now, again, I can't say I know that 100%, but I have a better appreciation for the fact that there is an architect behind this, and just how amazing that is. And it's still hard to believe, but it's an incredible thing. So, new BRN. Banda saw Bandit. Gravity is pseudoscience. We definitely agree with that. It's non-physical, and it's not mathematical. New BRN says, I feel for you. I have been blessed with a lot of money. That's cool, man. No, that's good, dude. We have no issues with that. And I've mentioned this in another video, that it's been a difficult thing for me, because I have to be humble and know that this book, though me and the few people that follow me, we're becoming more and more aware that looks like it's happening right before our eyes, but it may not, and it may not be true, first of all, or it may not happen in our lifetime. So I can't rain on other people's parade, and I'm not talking about newbie RN in particular, but just in general, I've had to realize, like, my job is not necessarily to go out there and scare the crap out of every single person to get them to, like, be as fearful as I am, or like as bearish of the future as myself. But, I just have to go and give people my perspective, what I see going on in the world, what I want to happen in the world, what I want to happen in my life, and those kind of things, And to me, once God's children say all those things in unison, the message will be consistent. And to me, that is sort of a collective prayer for the second coming. So if that makes sense to you, that's kind of that's the way I see our duty to share this truth of the kingdom of heaven and the nature of God. Okay. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up, he brought forth fruit. Then appeared the tares also. So the servant of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, did not thou sow good seed in the field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, least while they gather up the tares, ye root up the wheat with them. So this is an incredible thing. To me, this verse shows that, you know, if we view the servants as the angels, they're not capable of knowing who is the good and the bad, because God does the conditioning. And I think that's an incredibly powerful statement. And I'm not saying angels are not smart or any of that. We don't even know what shape of the earth we're standing on. So I'm not on any of that kind of vibe. But this, to me, is one of the many things that reaffirms that it is the Most High himself who is conditioning his children. How and why he's doing this, no one knows precisely. It's an incredible thing. Hopefully we're a part of it. That's pretty much all we can say. But there is a conditioning going on, and, you know, we don't like it, but it requires evil. That's what, to me, that's what I take from these verses. It's required. Like, God didn't literally sleep and then have somebody come, you know, unaware. It's just, he's being, it's just a story, you know, it's just a way to understand. But the take home is that, but he said, nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up the wheat with them. He's saying that you might be able to identify the tares. You know, you will not be able to necessarily be able to pick who are the people that, you know, God is conditioning. And so, because only God knows who he's conditioning and how and for how long. And so, to me, that's consistent with, you know, the end times being cut short for the elect. And whenever I think of the elect, I just think of God's children, like those who are closest to him and probably the most aware that that there is a conditioning happening. Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, gather ye together first the tares and bind them in bundles and burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. To me, this is reflective of a lot of different things, but relevant to the second coming, because the burning could be referring directly to World War III and the intercontinental ballistic missiles. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like to a grain of mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all the seeds. But when it is grown, it is the greatest among herbs, and becometh a tree, so that the birds of the air come and lodge in the branches thereof. So we can see the truth in its fullness and its maturity is a place of sanctification. You know, it's like the animals know that, you know, to be at peace. And I think this is alluding to the way it will be. Again, obviously, I don't know what's going on in the kingdom of heaven, but there, to me, I would suspect everything is at peace. You know, everything is, there's no quarrelsomeness. There's no God infusing, you know, confusion and deception and all that. And, you know, even the birds of the air come and lodge in the branches thereof, according to verse 32. Another parable spake he unto them, the kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal till the whole was leavened. All these things spake Jesus unto the multitude in parables, and without a parable spake he not unto them. So he's encoding language to people. And this, to me, also is partially a support of reincarnation, because even if they didn't get it fully then, they would get it at some other time, you know. And we, again, have the luxury of reading these things and having that perspective, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet, saying, I will open my mouth in parables, I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundation of the world. So these secrets are in place. If you don't, we have to understand now, God is the architect of Freemasonry, of the Jesuits, of every deceptive branch that's going on in the world, everything that is out there deceiving. God is the architect of that. But he is now, in my opinion, revealing a lot of secrets through the left and the right-hand side. Then Jesus sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said unto them, he that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man, is him. The field is the world. The children's seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that soweth them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. This is an incredible verse. If you remember anything that I read tonight, remember this. In Matthew 13:39, it says, the enemy that soweth them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world. So it's prophetic. And the reapers are the angels. So we have to have faith and hope that we are in that number, that we are reaped by the angels. And ETT probably has more videos than I do, but I'm pretty sure him and I will agree that the angels move and operate in what people here on earth would call UFOs. But I believe, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that they are identified. They are God's angels. They are not foreign entities. They don't have green faces or, slime coming off their neck and none of that. These are God's angels. And again, God is the author of the left-hand side. All the movies that portray aliens as evil, God is doing that. But in my opinion, again, this is the Spirit speaking to me. Test it with your own. But what I've been told is that those vehicles, those lights that people see in the sky that they can't understand and are not military and all that, that's God sort of checking up on us, through his angels. And there's going to be a final checkup, and may we be prepared for that. And Jesus says that when he returns, he's going to be looking for people who have faith. And may we have faith in these days when resources are scarce. There's a lot of evil. There's a lot of perversion. We have to figure out a way to still be faithful. I'm not saying that's easy, but that's what we got to do. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. So Jesus is saying that this world absolutely will come to an end. To think that this kind of perversion can go on forever is preposterous. To me, the strongest evidence that we're in the end times is 5 years from now, if anybody who is on the earth right now at an adult sort of age, which one would think that the elect would be able to understand things. I'm not saying 5-year-olds are not smart, but no person who's aware of what's going on in the world could stomach this world for 5 more years with the direction that it's going. And then not just that, beyond that, 5, 10, 15 years, I have no idea what the world would be like. We'll literally just be popping a pill in the morning, waking up, going on some levitator train to our plantation, sitting there in front of who knows what we'd be doing, and then coming back and then making babies with our robotic wife or something. Who knows? I'm being tongue in cheek, but I'm also kind of being serious. I have no idea where this is going, and it just sounds like a really, really bad movie. If it were to continue longer, in my opinion, than 5 years, that it would start looking something like that. But Jesus here says that there will indeed be the end of the world, and it will end with fire, burning. Okay. And shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. And man, we want ears to hear. I don't want to be burned. I don't want to have gnashing of teeth. I don't want to be burned after being intellectually sodomized my whole life, 37 now. I don't want this all to end by being burnt. That's a bad life. We don't want that. We want what's written here in 43. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. That's what we want. And again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto treasure hid in a field, that which when a man hath found, he hideth, and for joy thereof goeth and sell all that he hath, and buyeth that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a merchant man seeking goodly pearls, who, when he had found one pearl of great price, went and sold all that he had and bought it. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind, which when it was full, they drew to shore and sat down and gathered the good into vessels, but cast the bad away. Notice how none of this language and I'm not here to pick on the Hebrews, but really any group fundamentally who does not understand that the language that Jesus used is authoritative. If you don't like that, in my opinion, we have a different spirit speaking to us. God is not saying he puts the net into the water and pulls Israelites and dark-skinned, woolly-haired Israelites go into the heaven. No, and I'm not trying to be racist or disrespectful. That is not the case. That is just, quite frankly, that is not the case. He says right here, gather the good into vessels and cast the bad away. That is a statement that will get fulfilled whether we like it or not. That is his way that he's going to distinguish it gets in the kingdom of heaven and who does not. The good into vessels and the bad away. The difficulty we have is we have bad in us, and so we have to ask God to minimize that and help us have more faith and all that. But it's a very difficult thing. But again, all the terminology that Jesus uses, even in the final judgment, when he describes those on his left-hand side and his right-hand side, like, pay attention to the terminology he uses. And so as much as it is true that Jesus is a black man, and in my opinion, many of the Negroes in America are indeed the lineage of Jesus who walked this earth, the metrics that he's using to distinguish those who get in and those who don't are spiritual in nature. Okay. So shall it be at the end of the world. The angel shall come forth and sever the wicked from among the just. And so may we be the just, and we don't know if we are, but we have just pardon the pun, we have to be upright, in this time, even though we live in a crooked generation. And shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Jesus saith unto them, Have ye understood all these things? They say unto him, Yes, Lord. Then said he unto them, Therefore every scribe which is instructed unto the kingdom of heaven is like a man that is a householder, which bringeth forth out his treasure, things new and old. And it came to pass that when Jesus had finished these parables, he departed thence. And when he was come into his own country, he taught them in their synagogues, insomuch that they were astonished and said, Whence had this man hid this wisdom and these mighty works? Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary, and his brethren James and Joseph and Simon and Judas? So Yahushua, not to ETT, not to pick on you, dude, but this is another virgin birth proof. If you even needed any more, but it's very, very obvious. Jesus Christ, we call Yahushua. He was virgin born. That's just a fact. There is no way that this person writing this would describe Jesus or Yahushua with his mother. People don't even do that now. They're like, who's your dad? What's your last name? What house do you come from? Here, they're describing him as a carpenter's son, but they're also saying, is not his mother called Mary? And so, it's that's referenced in other places that he is identified by his mother, directly, and he was virgin born. And his sisters, are they not all with us? Whence then hath this man all these things? And they were offended in him. But Jesus said unto them, A prophet is not without honor, save in his own country and his own house. And he did not many mighty works there because of their unbelief. And so that's something to keep in mind, in the days that we live in. The people around us might be the ones who turn us in or tell us we're crazy or, we're just being paranoid and all that kind of stuff. I just want to go quickly before I read some of the chat. These are some amazing verses here. Again, I'm going to 44. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto treasure hid in a field, and which when a man hath found, he hideth, and for joy thereof goeth and sell all that he hath and buy that field. To me, one of those treasures to me is flat earth. Even though it's scary, the mark of the beast and other truths, Jesus is black, all these things to me are treasures. And and because they're true. You know, just for us to celebrate the truth that Jesus is black, for example, means that he existed, that there was literally a person that said all these things and walked, you know, on the same ground that many of us walk on now, you know, and so that in and of itself is a treasure. And it's an amazing thing. And so, you know, I don't think it's not saying literally go and sell everything you have, because first of all, a lot of us don't have very much, so that wouldn't really reap a lot of revenue, but it's getting at something spiritual. It's like once we know these things, that there is a spirit world, that you know, that this Bible is highly likely giving us a narrative for the times that we live in. You know, obviously there's a lot of reason to be afraid with the things going on in the world, but we are also very much, you know, have joy and hope and thankful for the treasure of truth, you know, that we've received. And that's the most important thing, you know. And if it ever did come down to selling our goods or giving it away or giving them up for refusing the mark of the beast, or for standing up for the truth and all that kind of stuff, whatever the truth may be, you know, we should do it with joy. And that's really what it's getting at. It's not necessarily just the most righteous are going to like be selling off everything they have and dangling from trees and all that kind of stuff, you know, living like an ape. That's not what it's getting at. It's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual joy and all that kind of stuff. Mr. Menza, it's not totally irrelevant. It's extremely relevant. It's extremely relevant. First of all, if I don't know if you have kids or grandkids, if they put a picture of you up on the wall and they made your skin color green, would you care? You know, would you be like, whatever, it's totally irrelevant, you know, cute? You would ask your kids like, hey, like, just curious, like, why'd you pick green? You know, why didn't you pick brown or lighter skin like myself? What's the purpose? They're like, whatever. Green was the only one laying around, and who cares? You know, it's like no one would do that here on earth. Young kids wouldn't even do that out of respect to find make a representation of you, their father or granddad, in the right way. We're talking about the God of the universe, and he says he's black, so it's important. It is important. So you have to move past that mindset. Don't come to this channel with that. You're not going to like anything else that I post, and quite honestly, I don't want that around here. It is extremely relevant. Do you understand that if this book is true, the person that we describe as Black Jesus is he made everything. We're talking about an individual who is pure, who is humble, who said that he is one with the Most High. So he has a direct connection and a all that kind of stuff to God. And so it's this is an incredibly powerful entity, and we would not want to be disrespectful in any way. And it's important to unlocking the Bible for the end times. No, the colorblind thing, that's a different story. That you're allowed to say that you're colorblind and you wouldn't know otherwise. That's fair. You know, I'm not trying to be rude about your condition, but like from a truth perspective, we need to know that Moses is black. Why would God sit there and tell Moses to put his hand in his bosom and take it out and then put it back? Is God bored? Like, is God just like, hey, Moses, like, you know, I'm bored. Like, I'm just going to make you like put your hand in and then take it out and then put it back in, and then just because I'm bored. No, God is not like us. He doesn't like screw around with people. Like he does things for a purpose. He did that with Moses. So people in this generation, it's hidden. Like all of these verses that Jesus talks about, he's talking in parables to people. That interaction, if you think that Moses put his hand in and it came out leprous, and then he put his hand back out and you think it turned olive, that this is hidden for you. This Bible, all of it will not make sense to you. And if you think that Solomon is not black, even though it's written, or Job or Jesus or any of that, it's just hidden for you. You know, and I'm not saying God can't open your eyes and stuff, and I'm not saying I have 100% truth. I don't, but these are plainly obvious. Like, this is not really actually that encoded. I would actually say some of these verses, like, goeth and sell and all that he hath and buy that field. That to me is like a little bit harder for us to interpret, because what is he saying? Does he mean literally go and sell everything you have and buy some field or buy the kingdom of heaven or whatever? We don't know how to interpret that in our day-to-day life. It's hidden. We have to work with God. And in my opinion, in verse 29, Jesus reiterates that he will work with his children. He says in 29 to the angels, but he said, nay, lest while you gather up the tares, ye root up the wheat with them. He doesn't, there's a pruning going on that only he is doing. And, you know, that's a very important thing to recognize, because there's a lot of verses that are much, much harder to interpret than the color of Jesus's skin. We know that. We got to move on to other things. And flat earth to me is encoded lightly, but not really that much. Any Christian who claims in any serious way that the shape of the earth doesn't matter, or it's not in the Bible, it's not a book that would talk about that, they're lost to me. You know, and I'm not saying I'm better than them or I want anything bad to happen to them. That person is totally lost. Don't waste your time. If it's just like if you guys were to come on these live streams and I start ranting and raving like God and I are best friends and I make up all these experiences that I never had, and, you know, send your money to me and all that kind of stuff, you wouldn't want to listen to somebody like that. I would not recommend you to come and listen to this stuff, because it's obvious that the person is not connected to God. And so the shape of the earth is incredibly important, not just because it matters in our day-to-day life. Like, it's not like, oh, I have to look out for the curve and I might trip over the curve or whatever. It's not like day-to-day it makes a difference for our experience, but it means that you're interacting with the God of this Bible. And like I said earlier, it means that he's given us a treasure in verse 44. If you are a flat earther, even if you're not reading the Bible, to me, that's a gift. You know, we could call them shills and all that. They've still given a gift. You know, we don't know what the ultimate fate of anybody is. But to me, flat earth is a gift. Acknowledging the way Jesus looks is a gift. Acknowledging being able to be given insight into the fact that America, if we're in the end times, is very likely Mystery Babylon. To me, that's a gift. And all this stuff that Jesus talks about, it's amazing, because he's going from pruning people, you know, and saying, you know, I'm going to like prune people while they're surrounded by evil. But then he switches to the end of the world. So can you imagine, like, I just can only imagine being around Jesus. It would be very difficult in many ways to keep up with him, because he's talking about things in the here and now, but then he's also talking about the end of the world in the same breath. Within the next few sentences, he's talking about the harvest is the end of the world and the reapers are the angels. And you're like, whoa, like, what's this guy talking about? You know, I was just asking him a question about, you know, sowing and parables and like life, my day-to-day life. And he's talking about the end of the world, angels, and like being burned with fire and stuff like that. And so, you know, it's an incredible thing that all these things to me are gifts. And we obviously can't flaunt that we you know, this, because like I said, we don't know that they're true until they actually happen. Yeah, God created everyone. God created the left-hand side in the diametric opposite of him, and God created the right-hand side in his image. And he's working out some kind of thing where he's using both, but in my opinion, to receive those on the right-hand side back to him. So those on the left-hand side are, if you think of it in multiplication, it's like -1. It's like God times -1. Is the left-hand side. It's everything's backwards. Like our society, you don't even have to be religious to know this. Everything in this world right now is backwards. Like, you have to be effeminate, borderline homosexual to make money. You have to be a corporate sellout. You have to be a zombie. You have to be, you have to not have compassion. You cannot speak of the poor in any kind of real way. I remember I was like dating a girl for a little while, and I'm not trying to throw her under the bus. I'm not going to obviously mention her name, but like, I had to like almost convince her that no one's talking about the poor. And like, she was looking at me like I was telling her some kind of like major revelation, you know, like I was like speaking in tongues or something. And I'm like, no one's talking about the poor in the world right now at all. And myself included, really, to any serious degree. And like, everything is backwards. Like, you cannot do anything righteous in this world right now at all with any like vigor, fervor behind it, you just can't. Try it and like get back to me. Like send me an email how it works out for you. How it works out for people to go to their job and say, why are we getting paid like peanuts? Or why are these people being treated this way? Why is this food coming to us this way? Why is our government lying to us? Why is God so taboo? Why can't we talk about God? Why am I not allowed to talk about God freely? Why do I get a strike on my channel because I'm talking about God? Why do I get censorship because I'm talking about flat earth? You know, everything about this world right now is God times -1. That might be what I make the title of this live stream, because that's what it is. And we want to be God times +1. We want to be like God, and only He knows. But yeah, everything is God's left-hand side is created in the reciprocal, the opposite of Him. Mr. Mensa, no, God hates white people. I'm not sure if you mean ETT. Do you mean no God out there hates white people, or do you mean you correcting him that God hates white people? What's your stance on that? That's a very that's not a correct thing to say. I think that's a lot of what the Hebrews talk about, and they refer to this lineage called Esau, which I believe Donald Trump. If you look at Donald Trump, and I'm not a betting person, but I would suspect that somebody like him or Bill Clinton are from that lineage. Their face is like super red, it's not their face. It's just what they're doing. They're just actors. Like you could go and sit in with Hillary Clinton for hours and tell her like, why are you bombing every place in the world? She's not allowed to listen, and she's just going to keep doing what God has programmed her to do. And to me, I would be shocked if they're not part of that lineage, if the Bible's true. But God doesn't hate white people. God doesn't necessarily even love black people. If we were to say that the so-called Negroes are the Jews, let's just say that hypothetically, even if you don't believe that, look at their condition. Is that what God loves? Does God put them in a condition like that? And then we're coming saying God only loves them. Well, look at the condition He put them in. You know, it's not like we're saying God loves them and He's giving them, roses and daffodils every day. No, that is a pruning that, again, to me is described here in the Bible. That's impossible to understand unless you're spiritual. And even then, it's still not easy to understand. But just because they are many of them are likely from that lineage, that doesn't mean that they're getting preferential treatment. In many ways, it means that if you're getting this is the counterintuitive thing about the God of this Bible, and is that the closer you get to Him, the more that we will all realize that we are unworthy. And so whoever those chosen people are on earth, the closer they are to God, it's not like they're just like feet up and, like women everywhere and just, Bentleys and like roll. No, like you get close to this God, you're going to have to share in His suffering. And it's not for everybody, and it's like even just the certain truths are not for everybody, much less going and doing the works is difficult. So I don't want anybody to come and get the misunderstanding that I think that God only loves the so-called Negroes. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying a majority of them and their narrative, to me, fits Bible prophecy. And to me, it would be absolutely scary if what they went through is not in the Bible, at least somewhere. And to me, it's, again, the spirit that's dealing with me, which may or may not be right, but is reaffirming to me that they are indeed the biblical Jews, but their leadership is atrocious. Their leadership is lost. A lot of their leadership are ball earthers. So like they're completely lost, in my opinion. And that's easy to like. And John D posted a video earlier showing a very, very clean, observation test about flat earth. And so to me, a lot of the leadership, God is continuing to embarrass them, many of them, not all of them, with giving them atrocious leadership, even in the end times. And so, again, I'm not here on some they're better than us, or like I'm East Indian, so I'm not a what would be considered a so-called Negro or African American. But God does not love all people, but He also doesn't only hate certain people. That's the thing that's difficult about the time that we live in now, but also the beautiful thing about the time that we live in now, with this much lies and this much uncertainty and this much confusion and this much deletion of human history, all we can do is resonate and vibe with people who love truth, who just don't want, this sounds so simple, but it's like, and again, I'm not making fun of that girl that I mentioned earlier. It sounds so outlandish too at the same time, but it's like, imagine us just wanting to be around people who love truth, who love creativity, who love righteousness, who love generosity. Imagine like that. Like, that sounds so outlandish, but that's really fundamentally all it is. And I'm not saying it's nothing, but those are God's children. Those are the groups of people. If this kingdom of heaven exists, how would you describe the kingdom of heaven? Would you be like, yeah, all the like black people are in the kingdom of heaven, all the white people are down there, you know, licking people's boots? Is that only a demon would describe kingdom of heaven like that? That's why a lot of the Hebrews stay away from them. First of all, they're ball earthers, so we know a lot of them are Masons. But if anybody comes with that language ever, that is not the way the kingdom of heaven is described here or anywhere. Jesus would never make an absolutely stupid statement like that. That is preposterous. The kingdom of heaven will be God, will be people who act like this individual in the red letters who we worship. It'll be like this individual and more, you know. And so that's what it is. And so truth, mercy, righteousness, charity, humility, faithfulness, all those things. Those are the virtues that if what the Hebrews describe as heaven, a lot of them, I'm not throwing them all under the bus, but generally speaking, that narrative, I wouldn't want to go. I wouldn't want to be there. I'd actually rather stay here, and I don't really like it here, as you guys know. So that narrative, like Esau is going to be my slave, and white people are going to be slaves in the kingdom of heaven, and all that. Why would you fundamentally see all the slavery going on in the world right now and want to look forward to more slavery, but just being on the other end? A person who teaches that is from Satan. And I say that without remorse, and I will never change my stance on that. Anybody who is teaching that, to me, I would not want to be them, and they're going to face something, because that is preposterous. That is absolutely preposterous. Like, don't teach that. Even if you're tempted to, even if you're angry, like we all are, about the world and the enslavement. This is why I remind people of this, and I know that it's hard to. This is why it's hard for people to digest. But we need people to get angry at one person, individual, right now. It's God. This is why I tell people that. I'm not trying to like get points. I'm not trying to throw God under the bus. I'm telling you what's going on here is that God is doing that. God has enslaved us. God has tricked us with ball earth. Jesus even says here, the deceitfulness of riches. God has tricked us with the deceit, some of us with the deceitfulness of riches. In my opinion, John the Baptist didn't get tricked at all, but you need to understand reincarnation. But for the sake of argument, for the sake of just clarity, all of us have been tricked with something, but God did it. And so that's the important thing. It wasn't Esau. It wasn't the so-called white man. It wasn't the government. It wasn't NASA. It wasn't the Jesuits, the Jews, the Jewish people, the synagogue of Satan. Yeah, God did that. And the Bible even says that here. God is using evil to condition his children. And again, in 29, but he said, nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up the wheat with them. There is a pruning going on for God's children, and may we be those people that are pruned. But if you're out there, and if I'm ever saying something like this, I just can't even imagine people talking this way, but some of the Hebrews do. And the problem I get with that, and I have told them in different ways, but don't take your anger out on man. If you're a person like me who believes that Deuteronomy 28:68 prophesied the Israelites going into slavery on cargo slave ships, God did that. So get mad at God. And then if you're the type of person who says it was a lack of faith that did that, then it's our fault. So it's never Esau's fault. God, it's like in a courtroom. If you go to court and then you're guilty, like imagine God is the judge, we're the person who's guilty, and then the bailiff comes and takes us away to jail. Why are you getting mad at the bailiff? It's like, get mad at potentially us if we did it, or God. It's not the bailiff. In this case, the Esau, the Jesuits, Freemasons, the government, all of the deceptive branches and evil on earth are just the bailiff. That is God using, in this case, the tares to exercise judgment on people. And if you don't like the judgment, go to God. Ask God why he's doing it and all that. Don't think that God's going to be like, oh, yeah, those people that did all that stuff to you, I wasn't looking. I started looking over here, and then, they started doing that to you. I wasn't paying attention. So, yeah, in the kingdom, you're going to then beat them merciless, like senseless. That's, can you imagine how stupid that is? Like, some people actually believe that. That is absolutely ridiculous and moronic. Those are people who do not acknowledge and have a relationship, quote unquote relationship, connection to the Most High, knowing that God is doing this to us. God, my high school physics teacher did not deceive me with ball earth. God did. My high school teacher is not smart enough to do that. He didn't wake up, in the morning or at the beginning of his life and be like, yeah, I'm just going to kind of screw over 25 years of students about ball earth and just for fun. No, God did this. So just be very aware of that. And again, I'm not saying to throw God under the bus. I'm saying it for us to acknowledge that. And the common sense thing to do would be to ask God why and to redeem it. That's it. That's all we can do. And then he's allowed to answer that, or he's allowed to tell us to shut up, and people don't like that either, but we have to use that just to be humble. He's allowed to do that. And, again, may he not do that, and may he give us access to see more of him, not just the deception. If he's this clever to come up with all this deception and evil and perversion, how creative of a mind is he to come up with the opposite of that? And the Bible says in many places, we can't even imagine the things that God has prepared for those people that love him. And so we have to have faith in that, but don't do that kind of stuff. Even to a slight degree. The most evil thing that has ever occurred in human history was Jesus Christ, we call Yahushua, being killed by perverted hands, us, and he was pure. Everything else pales in comparison to that. So this is where the Hebrews, in my opinion, a lot of them, they just don't know God. And again, I'm not saying I'm on some next level stuff, but this is common sense. And I want it to be common sense for anybody else who has an ear to hear or is interacting with a similar spirit that's been assigned to me, because that is the most atrocious, a wicked act that has ever been committed in human history by man, orchestrated by God. And so, but what was God's response? He said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they're doing. So is the natural response for God's quote unquote children, their elect, his lineage, the Israelites, to be enslaved and then go and demand that God, let them enslave those who enslave them and then beat them senselessly? Does anyone want that in the kingdom of heaven? I don't want to be there with like one group, bashing the people over the head that enslaved them. That's not what's going on here. There is a conditioning going on. And even if there is quote unquote slavery, it's going to be the type of enslavement that is righteous, where still creativity abounds, still righteousness abounds, still charity abounds, and all that kind of stuff. That language, in my opinion, is put in there because God wanted this deception to go on. God is putting people, God is deceiving people. He's deceiving a lot of mainstream Christian pastors, teaching that Israel, like the country, the state of Israel, is where the end times is going to be, and the Mahdi is the Antichrist. There's like mainstream Christian pastors, and I put that in quotes, who are teaching that the savior in the Islamic religion is the Antichrist in the Bible. But they won't talk about how the Antichrist has been in the world for thousands of years, and they won't talk about the mark of the beast or central banking or any of the evils that are very, very obvious going on in the world that are financial in nature. So God has put all these things in the Bible for groups of people to take them and pervert them. We just don't want that. You know, and that's why I'm trying to be careful and only bite off what I can chew. And I recommend other people just bite off what you can chew. Don't bite off more. The Hebrews are biting off way too much, you know, and they're biting off way too much. And in my opinion, God is embarrassing a lot of them with Ball Earth. He's like, all right, if you guys want to go on that next level Bible stuff and go to that extent, you know, you guys are going to be ball earthers then. You're going to be shilling for NASA then, you know, and I hope that they come out of it. It's not funny, but we don't want to bite off more than we can chew. But we also have to know that the ultimate example to understand this Bible, to know that a perfect entity came to earth, and literally just people breathing, even just people being in God's presence is an abomination. Like non-perfection, being near perfection. Just Jesus, Yahushua listening to other people is God being merciful. Because again, he's perfect. Imagine like in our thing, it'd literally be like a grown man, us being around like toddlers all the time, little people just arguing and crying and stuff, and like the us being patient, you know, with those young people. It's that times infinity with God. And so just him being on earth is an act of mercy. And then him dying the way he did is an incredible thing that we can't understand. And then him also forgiving the very people that tortured him is the nature of the Most High. And if we are not like that, then why would God want us to be around him? We can't be around him if we're not like him. So, you know, we all have to calm down with that type of thinking and never get trapped into that, because then God will just embarrass us in some way. Okay, so ATT, I'll read these verses and then we can talk about that for sure. I just want you to understand what I just said, and I have a feeling you might still not, but just think about it. I'm not debating those verses in terms of they're not real and they don't reference slavery. I understand that. I just want you to potentially, and again, this is if you have an ear to hear, I may not be right, but think about slavery in light of what Jesus, Yahushua, did on the cross and the way he responded. That's my only point, because the kingdom of heaven will not contradict the narrative, the most important narrative, the most important event up till now and forever in human history of the way he died, by who, and the way he reacted. And so there is no way, just think of it very practical. But if you're a parent and you have like kids, you're setting a perfect example. Your kids take advantage of you. They beat you, but you're patient, and they actually kill you. And then they actually not only kill you, they kill you, but you forgive them with your last breath. And then you're now in charge of establishing the kingdom of heaven. Why would you want that to happen, but in reverse? That's not the way it's going to work. You know, that is not. And if anybody wants that type of leverage, evil, violence, I want no part of it. And if that is actually true, and this is the way it works out in the kingdom of heaven, I don't want to be there. Like it's almost better to be here then, you know, and just get our little Federal Reserve peanuts and have a Dos Equis on a Friday. You know, I don't want any part of that. I don't want to see more and more people getting slaughtered over the head and taken advantage of, and anger, and I'm going to get you back and all that kind of stuff. We don't want that vibration on earth anymore, anywhere. That to me served a purpose, served a time. God gave out his sentences to all of us, and we might have to drink more of that cup, unfortunately, but we don't want more of that vibration. And so to me, I'm just, again, this is the Spirit interacting with me. That's not the way it's going to go down. You don't even have to be super spiritual to know that. I understand. That's why check out my video again on he that goeth into captivity. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. You have to understand, like, spiritual people should read that and not just think of physical captivity. That means emotional captivity, spiritual captivity, financial captivity, and physical captivity. It's all captivity. So God wants us to read these verses and know that we're guilty of the captivity. It's not just the Jews going into captivity. That is a very obvious thing that has happened. And people who have an ear to hear on reincarnation will make sense to them, more sense. But those kind of verses don't just mean, oh, like I'm being held captive right now by a Rothschild financially, so that naturally means that the tables will flip. No, we have to first understand why God would put us under subjection. That's a judgment in and of itself that is righteous. That it's a righteous judgment. And then so if God chooses to allow people to enter the kingdom and then give them authority over other people, that's another judgment that's up to him. And it's like we have to be very, very careful, because even if we're not financially enslaving somebody else and we feel financially enslaved, that doesn't mean that we're not held somebody captive now, or we haven't in a past life, if you have an ear to hear about reincarnation. So it's but even with that being said, all of this has to be understood in light of the fact that a God who's perfect came to earth, shared truth, killed by his own people, and then forgave them. And so to me, myself, and hopefully more and more people, we're crying out that we want more of that vibe all the time. We want the vibration, the whatever you call it, the spirit, the energy of the individual here in red letters. We want that to abound, and we want that to be the kingdom of heaven. And in my opinion, only certain people will yearn for that. Yeah, so ETT is bringing up the point about Jesus wants to kill people and all that, and that's true. In my opinion, that's the main reason for the Book of Revelation describing UFOs and angels. And here in multiple places it says, here in 28, Matthew 13, 28, it says, he said unto them, an enemy hath done this. The servant said unto him, these are the angels, wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? So he's not saying that, no, the ones that are down there, they're going to be the ones that are going to kill everybody. No, the angels are doing the work in 28, or it's like they're asking. And then again in 39, he's saying the harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are who? They're the angels. So all this stuff that the Hebrews talk about, spiritual powers and beating everybody up and all that, they're madmen, in my opinion. Again, I can't tell you this for sure. I'm not. I don't know how this will play out, but to me, it's satanic to want that, and that doesn't make sense. So that's where I think the angels will come in, and it's their job to exercise God's judgment, because anything that we experience that's negative or not pleasant, God has done that for a reason. He didn't just do it randomly. We would have to believe that we quote unquote deserve it. And again, I'm not saying that that's easy to understand, but it's not like he messed up. It's not like we're paying for somebody else's stuff. We would have to think that we're being pruned on an individual level. And yeah, ETT, those UFOs, to me, and I can't remember what video specifically, probably that one that I mentioned on Revelation, or the one about I have two videos on captivity. And to me, that's the only way that captivity or the end times can take place, is that only God can be the one who exercises all this killing. Because my hands are not clean. People on earth who are honest and want to follow the Bible, they know that one sin equals all sin. So we're just as guilty as anybody else. So we're not righteous enough, or in this case, as Jesus says, we wouldn't know who to destroy and who not, and who to spare. And so only God and the angels can do this. And so the angels only do what God tells them to do. And so again, it's just my view. I don't want to come across soft and all that. I'm very aware of the destruction that is prophesied. I don't want to minimize that. And here it's literally like it says burned in a fire in verse 40. And therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire. And so shall it be in the end of this world. I just think the Hebrews err by saying that like God's going to give me power and I'm going to go and like beat up everybody that, enslaved me. It's like they don't understand that God enslaved them and God enslaved us in whatever way. And we have to believe it's for a righteous purpose. We hope, and then we hope it's a conditioning and that type of thing. Okay, so sorry I lost you guys. I got on my soapbox a bit, but if you remember, what was that one verse that I yeah, just remember that God is doing all this. That's very, very important for us to understand the Bible. Okay. So ETT, which verse is the best one that you want to discuss? Yeah, this is a good one. So ETT just gave us Isaiah 9:5 says, every warrior's boot used in battle and every garment rolled in blood will be destined for burning and will be fuel for the fire. So, man, that's an incredible thing to me. Like all this, all these wars, all this stuff going on, all these people are actors. To me, it's not biblical to fight wars and stuff. I know that that's not easy for a lot of military people to digest, but I'm not fighting for anybody. Like, I remember when I became a U.S. citizen and I asked about my Canadian citizenship, they were like, well, if we go to war, you have to fight for us. You can't flee to Canada. And what I know now, I mean, I'm not fighting at all. Like, no one's getting me to fight in anything. I can't fight for a system that's satanic, for a government that's satanic, and all of them are satanic. And so, again, this I hope that this verse is prophesying about the end times, because this fuel for the fire that's being referred to in 9:5 is consistent with the fire that's prophesied here at the end of the age, at the end of the world, and that fire will come from potentially from God's angels directly. All right, Mr. Menza, take care, man. Thanks for joining, bro. Oh, okay. I'll read it in the KJV. My bad. But ETT, do you get my point, broadly speaking, at least? But Isaiah 9:5, KJV, for every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. Yeah, that is quite a bit different, but that's a better translation. I like that. For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise. That's, to me, is all of this stuff is noise. Like there's a war going on right now, and I'm not trying to laugh, in Pakistan and India. No one cares. Like, no one's talking about it. Like, it's ridiculous, and it's just confusion. Like, there is just confusion worldwide, and it's like absurd. Like, it's just everywhere. That's at the macro level. At the micro level, even like these baller flat earth hangouts, and I'm not, trying to be rude because I'm in the hangouts, some of them, but it's just noise. Like, it's just people, and I've been part of that noise for sure. I'm trying to not be. If you caught a bit of the beginning of this live stream, I'm going to try and go into those hangouts and be a bit more technical, not call everybody a Mason and stuff, but it's just like noise. Like, there's just like literally like noise and confusion in the world right now. And we can't hope for a kingdom of heaven that has more noise, more strife, more beating, more violence, more slavery, more enslavement. I would Rather, and I believe the Bible directly speaks to this, but it's hidden to those that are lost, that the kingdom of heaven will be filled with virtues that are consistent with the Most High in his best representation, Jesus Christ. ETT, here's the main sort of theological point. If the kingdom of heaven is described as, quote unquote, getting back on your enemies, spiritually, the kingdom of heaven would be then everything that Jesus or Yahushua has made, he is enslaving them, and beating the crap out of them, being like, hey, you guys put me through this. You guys made me come down here and die on the cross. So I'm going to come and I'm going to lash the hell out of you. That's what you guys sometimes come across to people. And so don't go down that road. It's inconsistent. It's anti-Bible. It is antichrist. It is from the pit of darkness to say that, because God would not do that. That's not God's very nature as revealed to us in Jesus Christ, that he's not looking to establish the kingdom. I understand at the end of the world, he's exacting his judgment and destroying the left-hand side, because there's no purpose for them anymore. The conditioning is complete. But we can't imagine Jesus Christ or Yahushua in the kingdom just like, licking his chops, like, oh, I'm going to get back at every single person. Like, oh, I remember when I was hanging on the cross, I saw you snickering, and then I saw you over there, poking me and making fun of me. And, I'm just going to like make the kingdom of heaven getting back at you. No, all those things served a purpose. Grisly. I'm not taking away from that. Incredibly grisly. But that's not what the God of this Bible is saying. And we have to know that a lot of the messages are encoded lightly. So don't follow that narrative, and certainly don't preach that, because we're responsible for every time we open up this book and share it. Our intentions are going to be evaluated. Why are we doing this? What are we trying to get from this? All those things, we have to be really careful. And again, I have to be better at this too. Because there was probably, like, if you look at some of my videos, even like 6 months, a year ago, I was much more certain that we're in the end times, and like hoping and pushing and almost like crying for it to be. But I realize now I have to take a step back, take my foot off the gas and be humble, and know that, first of all, the Bible may not be true. And second, the end times could be at a different point, and all that stuff. These are all realities. And so we cannot talk like that, because it would go against the very nature of the God of this Bible. So ETT is saying, Voynich is like, amen. Yeah, man. I mean, I think more of us sense this. We don't want to go to the total Jesus is a fruitcake kind of pie in the sky God. We know that's not true. And it's confirmed here that he's not. He's bringing vengeance, but there's still certain things we have to balance with his character and his personality and the way that he responded to being killed in the manner that he did. It was with incredible mercy. And I'm not saying it's easy, but that's our example. And people who worship him worship his example. We want more of that in us fundamentally. For 1,000 years, Edomites will be enslaved and killed after 1,000. And fair enough, you might be right, but I've shown over 6 scriptures that speak of slavery in heaven. No, I'm not saying we skip them. God's using them to trick you, is what I'm saying. And again, that's why I think it's difficult for a lot of people to understand. If you don't recognize that God is using everything and many things to trick us, the Bible, he's using it to stumble people. He's used the Bible for many, many years. People have come to this book, Creflo Dollar. Probably certain times in my life, I've used the Bible or being religious to, like, when I'm dating women, to think that I'm spiritual or whatever. We all do it in different ways, and then that's a form of like leverage and like that's a deep sin. And people have been doing that for years, and God has put things in here. He's put verses in here that make it sound like God wants you to be wealthy. There's not here, but in other verses. And then those health and wealth preachers have taken that and literally ran with it. And in my opinion, ran away from God. So if you got to understand, ETT, there's a lot of things in here God is using to trick you. And um, the elect will not be tricked. So if you are a candidate and you feel that you are a candidate to be the elect, don't let these verses trick you, man, because there's a lot of stuff in here that is meant to trick you. And slavery, that word is there. I understand that. But the way the slavery would be carried out, you have to understand Jesus Christ or Yahushai's spirit to know what that will actually look like in the kingdom of heaven, which we don't know what it will be to its fullness at all, or if we're even going to get in, or if it even exists. But that's my point, is just whenever you read those, all I'm just saying is don't parrot stuff that the Hebrews say, because a lot of them, like I said, are Paul earthers. They're lost. God is absolutely, he's not even done mocking them. And I'm not saying it's funny, but it's like, we don't want any part of that. We know the earth is flat. We know that NASA is a deceptive agency, and Christian ballers to me are some of the worst ballers because it's obvious in the Bible that it's a flat earth book. Yeah, he will not revenge his death because, Voynich, he says explicitly on the cross, for they know not what they're doing. That means that he made a false statement. If he says they knew what they were doing, they were out to kill me, it's their fault, that means that Jesus lied. No, Jesus cannot lie. He says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing, and they don't know what they're doing. People right now who are taking the mark of the beast, they don't know what they're doing. They're just actors and actresses. They have no idea what they're doing. People who don't care about the shape of the earth, they don't know what they're doing, like they don't know that water can't bend and stuff like that. Like these are just people that are, to me, used to condition God's children, and God's, like, quote unquote favorite child, top spirit, is Jesus Christ or Yahushai. So he's aware of this, and that's why he said that for they know not what they're doing. And so, of course, he's not of that spirit anyway, to just want to, like, beat people over the head for eternity in the quote unquote kingdom of heaven because they hurt him. That's not true. I don't know how to say that in another way. That's just not true. Okay, for so ETT is asking me to read Psalm 137, 8 and 9. I'll go to that. Let's see what's going on here. O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewardeth thee as thou hast served us. Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones. So that's a good verse, even though it's scary to understand. But ETT, check this out. This is where we have to understand that God is not purely just a sadist. Like, he doesn't sit there and just love to see his children get absolutely brutalized because he's doing the deception and the evil. There's going to come an end to that, and God is going to take pleasure in extinguishing the left-hand side, so his children don't have to experience that anymore. He will enjoy it. He didn't, like, the Most High isn't sitting there watching Jesus die a criminal's death on the cross, drinking pina coladas and, like, with his feet up, like, loving every moment of it. He experienced that. They're one. So you would have to think that he experienced that pain in some way himself. And so, that's a very, very important distinction, is that all this evil and all this judgment that God is, in different verses throughout the Bible, that God talks about taking pleasure in punishing the wicked, you'd have to think that, especially at the end of the world, he's going to enjoy that in many ways the most, because he's then all that stuff is over and he doesn't need to do it anymore. And then we can dwell with God. Voynich is like, best to stay away from those that anger you, turn the other cheek, like like your bottom cheek. Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, just avoid them in these days. There's no point in fighting, getting in the pig pen, and I'm speaking to myself. It's a waste of time. So that's great. I'm headed to bed. As always, you have offered many ideas to think about next week. Yeah, Mies Kang, man, good to see you, bro. Sorry, dude, I just realized that the email in my banner doesn't work anymore. I checked the Rice website and it doesn't forward. So the email you sent, that one's good, and I've updated my banner and removed that old email. But if anybody wants to reach out to me, you just go to the About section, and my email will be there. And then, you know, if you have stuff offline, it'll be good to chat. But always good to hear from you, Mies Kang, man. Good to see you, buddy. Okay, so ETT's got a good one here. So Isaiah 53:10. Again, ETT, I'm not trying to undermine your ministry or even the Hebrews at all, like totally, but I'm just, if you think about this on your own time, just everything that has to happen going forward has to be consistent with what the personality of Jesus Christ, or you and I call Yahushua. It has to be consistent with that. It won't veer off from that. It's not like God's going to change his mind and be like, oh no, Jesus was a good idea, but you know, maybe I could have made these little tweaks. He should have been a little bit more angry. He should have been not as forgiving. No, this is the character of the Most High in human form, and that's not going to change. So everything about the future, the kingdom of heaven, everything about revelation, everything about judgment, everything about everything has to be consistent with that. And in my opinion, again, this is just my opinion, that's why the elect are raptured, because they're not allowed to hurt people. They're not allowed to. It's inconsistent with the God's elect's nature to hurt people, because they are the ones that will recognize that they're the most guilty. The closer you get to the God of this Bible, the more you feel guilty. The more you feel unclean, unworthy, and unable to exercise any kind of judgment towards other people. You know, that is the God of this Bible. And to me, those closest to God, and may we be one of those people, recognize that. And we don't want God's wrath anymore, you know. And thankfully, the Bible in these verses and in the Revelation and everywhere says that there will be an end to the wrath at some point. And so that's all I ask, just to keep that in mind. Okay, so I'll read Isaiah 53:10. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. Yeah, it's an incredible thing. Like, we're dealing with an incredibly powerful entity. If the God of this Bible is true, he's incredibly peculiar. He has a balance. He has a fairness that we don't understand fully at all. Just the fact that an entity would put his own son on a cross to die a criminal death at the hands of absolutely disgusting people. We as people would get disgusted if somebody on the street who's like filthy and unclean came and spit in our face. We would be disgusted by that. This is an infinitely worse thing, where the only pure thing on earth died at the hands of the very people that he was trying to save and try and teach. This God is peculiar. You know, we don't know all the answers. Like, it's okay. No one on earth will ever get close to answering that question. Not even John the Baptist. So probably in many ways, not even Yahushua himself, because even he in the Garden of Gethsemane was sweating blood. He was fearful of what was about to happen to him. So we don't have all the answers, and it's okay. You don't know what the slavery will look like in the kingdom. You don't know if we will even get in the kingdom. And if the kingdom does exist, the slavery would be orchestrated in a way that is consistent with the character and personality of Jesus Christ. Tell me what you think about people who think that Jerusalem or Vatican or Mecca is Babylon. Yeah, dude, you and I will definitely, we have disagreements, but I think you, me, and many people, or like the few people that come by my channel, if we're living in the end times, America's Babylon. And to me, that's like becoming mainstream news, you know. Man, I was on a YouTube video about the American economy, actually. Yeah, the one that I mentioned earlier about the 1,200 jobs, 1,400 jobs being lost in Ohio. And then people down below are posting verses of, healing Babylon and how Babylon won't be healed. So like, I don't even think it was necessarily a Hebrew Israelite. I think it's just people are starting to connect the dots. They know that America is Babylon. Again, if the Bible is true and we're living in the end times. So yeah, to me, stay away from those people. I mean, how can Babylon be Jerusalem? Babylon is said to be sitting as if it will see no sorrow. Like, that's one of the verses that to me like really resonates with me. People who just think, no, there's no way we're going to get touched. We're America. We got the military. Look at all of the clothing stores. Look at all of our power. Look at all of our big tech, our banks. There's no way we're getting touched. But that's what the Bible says will be the vibe, the sentiment of Babylon. And that's not Jerusalem. That's not Israel, because they've been in war, and they're apparently in the last couple of days there was like bombs going off and missiles being shot. They have never said that for many, many years, and they're not going to say that for a while, that they will see no sorrow, because they've been in sorrow for a long time. And so the only place that has seen no sorrow and is currently, one of the last few is America, Canada, and parts of Europe. The rest of the world is absolutely like just in turmoil right now. Satan has no power. Satan is under God. Yeah, God made Satan. And again, God made all these, the wheat and the tares, and then we hope that we're the wheat and then we're being groomed. That's our hope and our prayer. Yeah, Voynich, you're right. He obviously has power. Satan, and the left-hand side, evil, has literally almost complete power on earth right now, like I was saying, in the sense that you can't talk about God. Everything is God times -1 right now. So the power of Satan or the Antichrist on earth right now is almost at pretty much 100%. I can't see it get much worse than this. Yeah, I just can't. I mean, unless literally people are outside like looting and that kind of stuff here in America. It's happening in Venezuela, the blackouts, and Africa has been pillaged for a long time. India and Pakistan, like I said, are at war right now. What else is going on? I mean, there's a lot of instability in the world right now. I don't know how much worse it could get and sustain. So yeah, I think ETT understands your point, and I get your point, and you're correct. From an earthly sense, God has given Satan power, but God is the one architecting the evil. Yeah, and ETT brings up transgenders. It's not like that transgender decided I'm going to be a transgender. God is infusing all of this confusion, like gender confusion, sexual confusion, financial confusion, religious confusion, physics, like scientific confusion. There's confusion everywhere. And so, this is why I highly, if you remember anything from this live stream, anybody hears this near the end of it, go to God for everything. Don't go to man in the times that we live in now. Just don't. If that means you have to fast for 3 days or 4 days, or be sexually pure, or whatever you need to do where you don't have to have a direct dependence on man or woman for spiritual nourishment, do that. Just don't go to us, or especially random people on YouTube. Like, watch our stuff, watch Flat Earth, Ball Earth, watch preachers, go to ETT's channel, whatever, if listen to spiritual things, but only go to God for the truth, the absolute truth in the times that we live in now. And that's good advice throughout all of human history. Like, just what you are getting from God, share with us if you're so inclined. That would be a blessing for us. But only look to other people for reaffirmation, and look at what people are doing and why they're doing certain things. Like, don't just take people's word for it and whatever, they have a big following or it sounds right, or don't don't go to that. Like my narrative for my life is for me, and I have to walk it out. It may not be for anybody else, and somebody else's narrative could be very, very different, but I would just highly recommend people go to God directly. Yep, that is a reason for being all by myself for a year or two. Yeah, I think more and more people are realizing that even just the flat Earth truth isolates us. And again, it's a gift. Like I wouldn't trade that gift in. Like that's a major treasure. It's crazy to think that if the Earth is flat and I were to die, thinking that it's a ball, I mean, that would be like, I would be like, damn, like that's I wouldn't want that. As hard as of a pill it is to swallow. I'm thankful that I know now what is common sense, that we're not on a spinning beach ball hurtling through space, unobstructed, just singing merrily, 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 merrily. We don't even, we don't know whether like the ball or the flat Earth, how it's being suspended in air. God is doing this. God is the architect of the Earth and the sun and the moon and all the people on it. Atheism is absolutely dead. There's going to be a point, hopefully soon, where if you're an atheist, I mean, the person's sanity needs to be questioned. Like it's crazy how quickly it's happened, and it's a beautiful thing. We don't have to feel bad for atheists because we should be happy that God exists and we are drawing close to God, hopefully. And if atheists get sour about it, then who cares? We're not here to like feel bad for atheists just because they have a lot of dominion over the earth right now. And then, in my opinion, the Bible says in many places, and even in these verses, that dominion is ending soon. Yeah, Manny's right. The earth is not being suspended. It literally I'll read, sorry, what Manny is asking to read, Psalm 104:5. Mind of Manny says, you have not heard that it was said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, but I tell you, love your enemies. Yeah, exactly. This is a supreme ethic. When they say God is love, when we say that, God's not joking, and that's God had showed us the supreme way of love is that you could die by your enemies, the very people that you're there to be friends with. They will kill you in a grisly way, but with the last breath that he has, he asks God to forgive them. That is the supreme ethic. That is the supreme love in this Bible. And there's a lot of things in this Bible that are very difficult to understand. They're gruesome, they're grotesque, but nothing will be as gruesome as perverted people like us killing God. But then God turning around and saying, Father, forgive them. So that's why that's in my opinion, me and a lot of people worship the God of this Bible. So Mind of Manny says the earth is not being suspended. Read Psalm 104:5. Psalms 104:5 reads, who laid the foundations of the earth that it should not be moved forever? Yeah, exactly right. So God is the one who decided exactly where in three-dimensional, quote unquote, three space that this earth is. And it just sits here. This building that I'm standing in has not moved an inch since it was constructed. It has not moved. It's not spinning. It's not getting tired. It's not have like the atmosphere smacking it around and flying around on a spinning beach ball and all that. We are on a flat surface. Water does not bend. That's preposterous. We are in an enclosed system, and there is a divine, brilliant creator, and the mark of the beast will confirm that it is the God of this Bible that is behind it, behind all of this, all of it, like the good, the bad, and the ugly. So may he preserve us so we can continue to worship him and see more and hear more. And that's a brilliant entity. Like, how does someone think of this? Like, we are so arrogant that we just think it's so complicated that no one did it, instead of being humble and saying, it's so complicated, let's worship the one who did it. And I'm pointing to myself. There's many, many times where atheism was just a lot easier to be than acknowledging the fact that an infinitely creative entity created all this, which is becoming more and more obvious. The ETT is like the greatest mystery of all is not the foundation of youth from Pirates of the Caribbean 4, but if the earth is a flat and motionless plane. But then again, Pirates of the Caribbean. Dude, I haven't watched a movie in like years, man. Like I've disconnected from the world in so many ways, and I'm not saying it's healthy, but haven't watched a TV series in a while. Like it's dangerous. Sometimes like I need to maybe plug back into the world. Obviously not excessively, but maybe next time, if you guys are okay with it, I'll just live stream Keeping Up with Kardashians. And then we can make that I'm just kidding, by the way, but we still need to figure out a way to laugh, as much as there's a lot of pain. We have to try and be charitable and be of good cheer, even though in my opinion, there's a lot of dark days ahead, and people are going through right now in Venezuela, literally dark days. I mean, there's no electricity. So God is, in my opinion, he's already filled everybody's cup for what they're going to get. May that cup not be filled too much. And, may we be of an encouragement to one another through these days. Yeah, Voynich. Yeah, dude, I try and live stream once every weekend. I'm going to just read a Bible verse or a chapter. I'll talk a little bit about flat earth and different tests and then leave it open. I just kind of read what you guys are typing and then we just talk it through. So if you have any topics you want to go through or anything specific, I'm more of a New Testament person, but there's a lot of chapters we can go through together if you guys ever want to do that. So I'm open, normally like 10, 15 minutes before the live stream, I just flick through the Bible and I try and pick a chapter that, I might be able to like speak on. So that's very like open. So thanks again for coming by. Laughing is good for the soul, says the mind of Manny. Yeah, it is. And all these things are reflective of God's character. So he is absolutely bringing destruction, but he is the one who invented humor, comedy. He invented man, woman. He invented the earth, made all these things. These are all just some of his ideas. So if somebody can create all these things, if somebody can create a Voynich, or an ETT, a Hawashai, a Manny, a Mies Kang, we have an entity that can create all these things and allow us to think that we're free and independent. What else is he capable of? I want to see what's behind door number 2. This is door number 1. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I want to see what's behind all good. And I mean, again, the Bible says we can't imagine what that would be like. Proverbs 4. Okay. You guys have been on point with the verses, man. I wish I was better at that. I'm going to start spending more time reading the Bible. And that it's never a waste of time, especially in these days where the Bible's coming true for people. Yeah, Voynich, I mean, just the fact that we're able to have hope that a lot of these things are true is a gift in and of itself. Even if it ends up not being true, I still would be thankful because like we have hope. We have something to rest our hat on, that there's a narrative behind all of this deception and it's all not for nothing. So yeah, that's a great thing, man. So I'll check out your channel if you post stuff and all that. It's good to hear other people's perspective. I'm trying to convert ETT to a virgin birther, and then I think him and I pretty much agree on, a lot of things. So we agree on a lot of things anyway, but the virgin birth to me it's something that is not well understood by certain people. But okay, Proverbs 14:13 says, "Even in laughter the heart is sorrowful, and the end of that mirth is heaviness." Yeah, man, I like that. I like that one too. ETT. It's kind of like it kind of reminds me of the other verse that says, like the more wisdom you get, the more sorrow. Like it's almost like even though you go through life and acquire more, potentially more wisdom, there will be potentially more and more sorrow. So even if you're laughing throughout your life, the laughter will always have more of a heaviness that is described here. Even in laughter, the heart is sorrowful. So it's like, to me, again, I'm not trying to read too much into this, but this is just my perspective, is like everything about our existence right now is temporary. Even if all of us were rich and we had all the pleasures of life and everything was great, we all know that we're going to die. So in my opinion, death is actually a form of mercy, because God's letting us know that we will always have to answer to him and his judgments. And so we're not going to be able to enjoy, quote unquote, enjoy these things forever. And so everybody's laughter, even if it's genuine, ultimately there's a point where people know that it's not going to last forever, And so thankfully the flip side is true, that those people going through pain, that also won't last forever, thankfully. And so the tears also will not last forever. I mean, to me, I don't think there'll be a reason for that biological feature on us now to exist in the kingdom. Obviously, I don't know the way that it'll work or if I'll get in, but like pain and like suffering and seeing things that are sorrowful, to me will not exist in the kingdom of heaven as described in the Bible. EGT is like, as I said, all we can do is hope the odds tip in our favor. We can agree to disagree, but I can admit I'm maybe wrong and humbly say that. Yeah, I've had to swallow that pill too myself, man. It's like, yeah, man. It's like, to me, again, flat Earth is strong evidence we're in the end times, and strong evidence the Bible's true. The mark of the beast, literally at our doorstep, is the last pat on the back the Bible needs to be true. That the God of this book is indeed the God of everything. So I don't think we're that far away from getting a conclusive answer. And those are very, very important truths. But I think like virgin birth and all those kind of things, to me, are not that they like affect your life day to day or makes me a better person than you or a better person than me, but it's a spiritual thing. It's like certain truths unlock other spiritual truths, and like that just means that Jesus Christ, or Yahushua, was created not of a man. He's not a creation of man and woman. He's creation. He is God. That's the way he infused himself into the world. And that was a humble thing, even for him to go in Mary's womb, because he's God. He could have just popped up on the scene, and like he could make everybody's brain think that that's normal for him to be here and carried on with his existence. But he entered into the world in a humble way. And then he even grew as a child. And so again, this is like, I'm saying this very casually, but the Most High, the Heavenly Father, is an incredibly creative entity. He is literally able to put spirits in, Mary's body, and then have this entity grow into a man. It's an incredible thing, and to me, virgin birth is still an example of his humility, because he came into the world in a similar way, but also a very, very unique way, because he's special. Yeah, we call him Yahushua. To me, I don't exalt the name as much as the Hebrews do. It's obviously, for me, it's just a way to distinguish against blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus, which to me is an NWO figurehead, new world order construct. So yeah, EGT, we like that, dude. Your name is good, man. Your name says it all. So if we can understand the mind of God more, which is my channel's name, and then know that the mind of God is best perfectly expressed in Yahushua on earth, we're doing well. That's good. The mind of man, he says, for the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he has set the world upon them. That's an amazing thing, Manny. It's like literally the earth sits here because God wants it there. Like it's like if he wanted it to move or not exist, he just thinks that and it goes away. So that's a great verse. Manny was like in 1 Samuel 2:8, for the pillars of the earth are the Lord's. So it's like God is the pillar of the earth and he has set the world upon them. So the very pillars are God's. And so God is the foundation of this earth. It only exists because he wants it to exist. And that's a great verse. We would have been better off if we died from birth, but let's go read Job 3, the full chapter. That's one deep chapter that debunks hell. Yeah, ETT, I can do that. I might need to read it first on my own, just before we do that. But just so I have a bit of context to it. But yeah, I'd be open for that. That would be good. Yeah, dude, ETT, that's common. Like, I think now we all sort of get, we understand that when they're talking here and saying in verse 40, as therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The fire refers to like real fire on earth. Like it's not like a soul is like sitting in a place that's being burned and, you know, stepping on hot coals, dancing around for forever. We know that that's not true because that would require infinite energy. That would require an energy or a soul constantly expending energy. And the only thing that's infinite that lives forever is God. And so God would never take his own spirit and put it in a place where it's hopping around on hot coals forever. That doesn't make sense. And that's inconsistent with this verse as well, because even ETT, what you were saying earlier, that God controls Satan, God made Satan. And so God is the one who made Satan, who then produced these tares. And these verses say that those tares only have a limited life. They're not going to last forever and live forever and all that kind of stuff. And so that whole teaching that if you don't accept, quote unquote, Jesus into your life, you're going to burn for eternity in hell. That's an extremely evil marketing campaign to get people to believe in this NWO Jesus, this new world order. God loves only those who accept him into this world nonsense. Yeah, one day do a live stream about hell. That would be interesting. We agree the fire is nukes, the lake of fire is America. I even had a dream of that happening. We both, yeah, for sure. Like kind of like what Russian Vids brings out, like truth in the movies, lies in the news. Independence Day and movies like that are God prophesying through the left-hand side, you know, and God obviously uses the right-hand side as well, which we hope that we are on that side. But he also prophesies through the left-hand side, through movies, through I posted a video not long ago about Charlie Munger, one of the executives at Berkshire Hathaway, and he's openly talking about America not lasting forever, you know, and he's like laughing about it with the interviewee, and God's prophesying through them. You know, obviously they don't know what they're doing explicitly, but a lot of those Masons and stuff, they know that just common sense, especially now with the economy. But, you know, America cannot last forever just from a financial perspective, much less anything else. So, yeah, dude, I agree about Second Esdras, man. I read that and made a video on it. But when I was reading it, I was catching myself reading it because I'm like, wow, like it's a powerful thing. How consistent it is with Revelation in the language and all that. Yeah, we can go through that. I'll read those ones here, but that would be another good one to go through sometime on a live stream, is that book of Second Esdras. One of those verses, ETT, I don't know if you remember it or if it's one you just said, but it's where it says God's going to visit the world that he made. And it just, every time I hear that, it just sounds so scary, but amazing at the time. I can't, I mean, I can look up the verse. You probably know it off the top of your head. Yeah, so I think it's Second Ezra 9:2. So this is a good one for you guys to check out. Second Ezra 9 verse 2 says, "Then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made." And every time I read that, it almost gives me chills. That's just an amazing verse. Again, Second Ezra 9 verse 2. If you guys want to check that out, it's like God's going to visit. He's going to pay all of us a visit, and may we be ready for that. Okay, so EGT is like, read Revelation 20:14, and death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And so that's a very, very good verse. And that death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. Yeah, all the death and the let me just double check that. All the death and hell that's happening here, all the disgusting food, all the killings, all the pedophilia, all the death, everything here on earth right now is death. We're living in hell. Many people are literally living in hell. In the very least, we're living in intellectual hell, in my opinion. The Bible says, and this is a great verse ETT brought out, it says, those are going to be cast into the lake of fire. So all of the things, and Jesus says in another place, the causes of sin are going to be removed. That's a very, very important distinction, that there are certain causes of sin. And this is where we cannot blame ourselves. We are not the cause of sin. We have sinned, and I'm not trying to take away from that, our responsibility for our sins. We are not the cause of the sin. Like me, ETT, Voynich, Manny, we did not cause sin. We did not cause the mark of the beast. We did not cause evil, any of that. We do sin. That's a fact. But that's why it's very, very important distinction to know that our cry to God is that to remove those causes of sin, to remove all that evil. We don't want to be affected by that anymore. We don't want to contribute to it anymore. We don't want to see it anymore. We're sorry for what we've done and sown into that. We need mercy. But yeah, this is a great verse, Revelation 20:14, and death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death, and I believe that is the exact lake of fire that's being described in Matthew 13:40. And as therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. So Voynich, all I think we're getting at, or ETT's getting at, is that death and hell are sort of concepts, are embodied in people, and they will meet an end with the lake of fire. And my understanding, and I believe ETT is the same as well, that the lake of fire is very literal nukes. That World War III will be the last expression of God's wrath and destruction, and only his children will survive, and may we hopefully be one of them. No, I didn't know that, ETT. I got to go through the Apocrypha again, man, more carefully. But just that one verse in Second Esdras alone, and the little bit that I posted in another video, I love the parallelism. I love how that book, like you're getting at as well, ETT saying, did you know that the story of creation is found in the Apocrypha as well, in Second Esdras 6? And that parallelism in the Apocrypha that is consistent with other books in the Bible, to me, reaffirm that it's true, and give a slightly different wording, way of describing things. Because Second Esdras 9:2 sounds almost kind of innocent. Then shalt thou understand. It's saying that, and this to me is very prophetic, because people will now understand. And I think people, even non-religious people, know that there's something wrong with the world. And ETT has said this before, that even atheists know that the chip is evil and it's here. And so to me, in 2nd Esdras 9:2, God is prophesying to his children, then shall thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world he made. What does that mean? When God begins to visit, Jesus talks about birth pangs. It's going to be a process. God visits the place that he made with judgment. It may not always be judgment. He may obviously be handing out, rewards during the end times, but largely it's going to be judgment and more chaos and more, confusion and disruption and all that kind of stuff. I'll read. So ETT was one of the YouTubers to make. Yeah, that's good, dude. Yeah, man. There's a lot of good stuff in there. So I'm definitely thankful for the Hebrews to put me on that. And for all you numerology buffs out there, the Bible without the Apocrypha only has 66 books. And so that number is obviously not a number that we like. And so I view the Apocrypha as canonical. And so Zechariah 14:12, and this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away with in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. Wow. Dude, that's amazing. And that's a good one. And keep in mind in Zechariah 14:12, it says the Lord will smite all the people. And so that's a very, very important distinction. It is God exercising his own judgments. And again, may we get our cup lightly filled, because that does not sound good. This does not sound like a pleasant way to go out. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet. He's not even going to let them fall. And their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. So you can see that God doesn't want them to move anymore. He doesn't want them running around doing anything. He doesn't want them to see anymore. He doesn't want their tongues to talk anymore. So this is God exercising his own judgment. And again, may we not be a part of that. That does not sound good. Yeah, Manny, I'm the same. I mean, I've read it a little bit, and I use this King James with the Apocrypha inside, so I don't have to have a separate book, but it's worth getting into. And like ETT's pointing out, it reaffirms the creation account, and then it has very prophetic chapters, books and chapters as well. All right, guys. Sorry, I didn't know I was going to go this long, but if you guys have any sort of final thoughts or things and all that, let me know. But that's good, I guess. On the flat Earth stuff, I think, man, there's a lot of, like, John D posted a video that I just mirrored on my channel. You guys probably have checked it out, but I don't know. I think like this year is going to be a really big year. And to me, once flat Earth is like absolutely proven, like, conclusively and objectively, and both sides would be, ready to acknowledge it, at least to some degree. To me, that's a very spiritual thing. And to me, that's why God is like releasing it in a controlled way. But once the flat Earth is proven objectively and in a repeatable way, using off-the-shelf technology, which John D has done it that way, to me, that's a very spiritual time, and more so than ever. But that's an incredible thing. Even those who are inclined to it or believe in it already, I think we'll still have to do a lot of soul searching as well. Yeah, that's cool. ETT, you're on the scriptures, dude. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt your sincerity. I know that you're not doing this for the money or anything like that. I just I critique you lightly, and not taking away from your fervor and your passion for it. I just would ask you to just be careful about certain teachings and the way that it's come across. We all have to be careful. And if you see anything out of line with any of my videos and all that, and the comment board is not the easiest place, because sometimes I get a bit defensive because I don't want things on my comment board that will mislead somebody else. You can just send me an email. Like I said, if you click on about and then you go down to inquiries, you can get my email and we can dialogue that way. I just am a little protective of my comment board. I don't mean to be rude with people, but if I write something back and I feel like you had enough time to read it, and I don't want it to be there because I don't want my channel to have comments that are not constructive or I don't find interesting or useful. So I just delete them. And so I'm not trying to censor or whatever, but I kind of view my YouTube channel as like my digital home. And so I don't want somebody like coming to my place and like peeing on the floor and then just like all of us having to stare at it. You know, I don't want that. I mean, I don't want to see it. So, but no, we appreciate your verses and stuff, man. Yeah, Manny, what's up, dude? Always good to see you, buddy. So I saw you posting some hockey stuff, man. It brought back good memories of my hockey days. I hope I'm not confusing you with somebody else, but yeah, I grew up playing hockey. I grew up in Canada, and it reminded me of the good old days when things were a lot simpler. ETT's like, did you see I called GMSL for putting Romans, was talking about unjust wicked laws. Romans 13 is talking about spiritual leaders. Yeah, dude, again, I'm not saying they're all bad, and I'm not saying they're not the elect or they're not the Jews or they're not sincere or whatever. I have learned a lot from the Hebrew Israelites. I'll say that now, and I won't change my story on that. I learned that the chip is coming, which now is more and more mainstream. So I probably would have figured it out anyway, but I'm thankful. Jesus is black. That's a powerful truth that I consider a treasure, that I'm glad I know. And they brought out a lot of different evils in the world. I think they forget to introspect themselves and their leadership with that scrutiny, but that's my opinion. They've brought out Babylon. I'm not sure if I said that, but and they go on the streets. You know, they teach. They put effort forward. You know, that's not for everybody. They've sacrificed you know, ETT, you the same. You know, you sacrifice things in your personal life when you go out on the street and preach things that a majority of the world, even a lot of the Christian world, would find crazy. So, you know, I have to be better about that. I'm sort of planning to do that at some point, but I'll sort of fight the digital fight for now. But now that I see these people on the streets and I realize, you know, a lot of them are teaching nonsense, it's definitely important for all of us to speak up. Yeah, ETT's like, I have respect for the apostles, GMS, and believe they are true and correct, but they don't got it all and are incorrect on some. I don't have any respect for their leaders. I have a lot of respect for their everyday people. Like the few, I sometimes go to the people here in Houston, and I genuinely feel like they care and they're not being deceptive on purpose. But the leadership, like one of them is like a known Freemason in a biker gang, and they're all ball earthers. And I've been to their camps and tried to talk about it, but they won't talk about it. You know, they just won't talk about it. And so to me, not just flat earth and ball earth, if there's topics that you don't want to talk about, you're not allowed to talk about. Fundamentally, that leaves it open for the enemy to come in. Like if you don't want to talk about Jesus' skin color, if you don't want to talk about the chip, if you don't want to talk about flat earth, if you don't want to talk about mystery Babylon, if you don't want to talk about financial deception, if you don't want to talk about the parables or like, you know, anything in the Bible, if there's certain things, all of us people don't want, if we don't want to talk about our own sins, anytime that happens, to me, I'm not saying the person doesn't is a bad person, but it leaves room for the enemy to come in. And so for people like GMS to claim to have 100% truth and be Bible scholars and love the Bible and love truth and love the narrative and want to be with God, but not look at the verses that are plainly obvious that we're not, and pardon the pun, that we're not on a spinning ball. And that is like a very, very obvious and clear atheist deception. Something else is going on, you know, and we can be sincere and hope that they come to more and more truth, but it's not our responsibility. And I mean, as of right now, if it were to stand right now, I don't want to be around people like that, because these truths are obvious. Like, it's like other truths, you know, like let's say me and the Hebrews had a different interpretation on like, sell everything you have for the kingdom. Let's say I had one interpretation and then they had another. That's different, you know, and one of them, we don't know which one's right. If somebody took a literal interpretation or somebody took like a more figurative, metaphorical approach, that's, you know, no one knows until it's actually God decides. But these kind of things are very like objective, like they're very like kind of obvious to a lot of people now. And to not want to talk about it is bad, you know, because to me, I know when somebody doesn't want to talk about it, especially a Christian, quote unquote Christian or an Israelite, that either it's ridiculous or it's true. And so in this case, not just us, but a lot of people know, we know that the earth is flat. And then the Bible adds extra support to that. And then honestly, the response of people who don't have their heart in the right place, to me, makes the earth even flatter. You know, the more people don't want to talk about it or make fun of us and say we're stupid and conspiracy theorists, this and that. Every time people do that to me now, more and more I know that the earth is flat. Yeah, Apostle Ricard. Yeah, ATT, man, I think that story that you're talking about, getting persecuted for teaching the truth, is going to happen more and more. You know, one would think that if we're getting closer and closer to the end, those spirits on the left-hand side, and again, may we not be them, they're going to know that the end is close. And so they're not going to be like happy about it, you know, just to talk about it in earthly terms. If there are spirits on the left-hand side that are genuinely against truth, anti-Christ, anti-God, anti-kingdom of heaven, they're not going to be high-fiving us like, hey, oh yeah, you guys, you know, you get your God back, you know, good for you. No, they're going to be like annoyed that America could potentially be destroyed. You know, they're going to be annoyed that the chip is coming out and it's Bible prophecy. They're going to be irritated by that. They're not going to like that. They're not going to want to hear the more and more people speaking up about flat earth, because flat earth is bad news to a lot of people, because flat earth to me immediately implies God, and then also implies that we're in the end times. So a lot of these things that are treasures for us, for you, me, and others are you know, not a pill that other people want to take. So, you know, Sean G, what's up, man? Sean G, is the earth flat, or like what have we come to any conclusions on your end? Or are you back on our side, or what's up? And to me, ETT, this persecution doesn't make sense unless we're in the end times, because no one would care. You know, why would the police care that ETT, Yahushua King, is out on the street just reading from the Bible? Like, who cares? You know, like I'm not, you know, I care, and I think it's a virtuous thing, but why would other people care? You know, why would people care that we think the earth is flat? What are we going to do? Extort everybody because with our flat earth Ponzi scheme? You know, come on. Like the only reason people care is because they know that it's true. Flat earth is consistent with the Bible, so that can't come out. The mark of the beast is in the Bible. That can't come out. The evils of inflation and all that is prophesied in the Bible, so that can't be spoken of. Everything that's in the Bible that's true and is coming out is going to be resisted. And the bigger the truth and the more important the truth, you know, it's going to be met with more and more angst and resistance. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Voynich, would they care if we were reading fairy tales? If we sat there and read Jack and the Beanstalk on the street and just read stories, and people will come by and be like, "What are you reading?" It's like Jack and the Beanstalk. They're like, "Okay, whatever." Or they're just like, or we were preaching, you know, like rectangular Earth. They'll be like, "You think the Earth is a rectangle? You know, like why?" And then they'll just like leave. So, you know, but if you happen to preach flat Earth, stationary, not spinning Earth, that's a major problem. You know, they'll be like, where do you have your license? You know, why are you here? You're causing a nuisance, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, ATT, I don't think this is going to last for much longer. Again, I'm not saying that as if I have any inside information, but purely from a financial perspective, I don't see this going much longer because the poor have been poor and they're getting poorer, and the middle class have no job security. And in my opinion, even the quote unquote upper class or the lower upper class, they have no job security either, because they know if they lose their job, finding another one that pays that much is not going to be easy in a slowing down economy. So it doesn't really look good for anybody, honestly, top to bottom. So again, I don't see from a financial perspective how this can continue. And it's not like wealth can be reinfused and redistributed. It's not like the rich people are going to start randomly giving people money so they can go buy new shoes at J.C. Penney. That's not the way it's going to work. You know, this rich and poor is prophesied in the Bible, this two-class system, and it's here to stay, and it's not going away. God's not going to just give the left-hand side, you know, magnanimous hearts, charitable hearts to start giving their money away so these stores don't have to close down anymore. That's not the way it's going to work. You know, that's not. I don't see that happening, even if the Bible is not what I'm reading from. But the Bible speaks of a very, very different end time, where the grinding ceases, things slow down, people become desperate, scarce, food becomes scarce, and famines hit, and then missiles come. There's war. And so that's what the Bible predicts. If we're in the end times and Babylon's America, that's the fate that America is signed up for. And to me, it would not take a long or major interruption or disruptance to cause that to happen. So I don't think we're that far away. Yeah, ETT, we have to, you know, let them enjoy it. You know, a lot of them have made a lot of money and God has given it to them, and we can't, and I'm saying this to myself, we can't be haters, you know, rain on their parade. Just, yeah, they're eating better food than us. They're probably eating actual food. We're eating some GMO trash that some scientist came up with, who's, you know, probably, you know, not looking out for our best interests, you know, and our immune system. So yeah, dude, I just don't watch movies anymore. I don't know if it's like ADD or I can't sit for that long or whatever. I mean, I'm just losing my patience in life. And, you know, I think my new intellectual challenge is start doing more tests or thinking about tests with flat earth. That's a way for me to like have something to do that's constructive. But it's hard for me to sit through a movie. And it's been like that for many, many years, even before flat earth. But I did watch Independence Day when I started getting into like the end time stuff, like some of these videos, like The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Some of these movies that have like numerology encoded and all that. So I have seen a few of them and I find them useful and interesting, but in general, a lot of movies for me, it's just hard to sit through them. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know you did reviews on that. Yeah, I like that, man. We need more like that Russian vids kind of vibe. Um, Man, he's put so much information out. It's incredible. Yeah, Independence Day to me is God prophesying through the left-hand side. Yeah, and Running Man. Those are all God's saying. Running Man is like he's mocking. This is why I think God he's he's peculiar, but he's sarcastic. Whenever you hear songs like Rihanna and Drake, like work, 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 or like Running Man, how like, you know, literally you'll have to be like a running man. God's like kind of mocking this time period that he set up, that people are literally just gonna be running around and they're gonna be like slaves. And, you know, there's a lot of sort of sarcasm, but also prophecy that God infuses on the left-hand side. And, yeah, that's those movies and stuff like that are good examples of that. Even just like this, there's a video that I posted of the Russian choir singing about absolutely annihilating America. And people were like, no, it was just like satire, or it was like for a different time. It was like 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But God to me is, he uses everything as a form of prophecy. In this time, it's more digital, technological. It's through like movies and stuff, but he's dropping us hints and clues in different places. And it's hard to avoid it. It's in the news. Charlie Munger is saying that America's done. So it's in the news. It's in movies, like we said, Independence Day and Running Man and all that. It's in music. If you listen to some of the old Wu-Tang Clan, let me get that. I have a video. I think I still have the video up on my channel where I do a review on one Wu-Tang Clan song. And there's a lot of rap songs that talk about judgment for Babylon and all that kind of stuff. But if you hear a verse by You God, which is a rapper in Wu-Tang, he's talking about cremate the whole Babylon. I believe it's in Bells of War. Let me actually get that really quick while I'm citing it. Oh yeah, no, sorry. The song's called "Impossible" by Wu-Tang Clan, and he's like, "The sun gotta shine, keep on, cremate the whole Babylon. Time's up, move on." And this is like one of their older albums. Like this is a while ago. Wu-Tang Clan "Impossible" was let me see what year this was published or released. But I think that was from their double CD, so like that was back like 20 years ago. And so there's prophecy even encoded in music. How else would that individual know about that unless he like studied from the Hebrews, or God? In my opinion, God writes everything, music, movies, and all that. God was speaking through them, through their rap. So, okay. Get rebellion. Sorry, ATT, what verse is that? You said get something 17, 16 to 17. Is that Revelation? Oh, okay, my bad. Yeah, Revelation, I got it. Yeah, Revelation 17, 16, 17. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God hath put in her hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. So yeah, that is that's, if the Bible's true and we're in the end times, that's what's coming down the chute for Babylon. So wow. You know, it's like, what an incredible movie if we're living in one, and how brilliant this director must be to do this. It's incredible. Yeah, even Wyclef, you know, even Wyclef was prophetic. A lot of them too, from like the islands and the Caribbean and all that. Quite a few spiritual people, and their music has a lot of that. Yeah, I don't know, ETT, if it was a dream or if he was, how that happens. Obviously, knowing the spirit world that one exists is not something I can easily wrap my head around, but that's a good question. Was it just a dream? Was it just, he literally like was taken somewhere to see something? Did God come to him and show him who knows, but that's an incredible thing. That's why those people closest to Jesus had to be groomed and conditioned, or else most people would not be able to understand or handle what they've been what they're being taught or shown. Yeah, I mean, it is basically, it would have had to have been some form of time travel, but again, to me, God is the one who has set the whole narrative. So he's giving him, who knows if he's giving him a literal view of it or just snippets of the way that it will play out, similar to, but yeah, I mean, I obviously believe that he knows the beginning from the end. So he might have been actually looking at literally a movie of like, I mean, we could be in that movie. You never know what he was seeing. Yeah, ETT, it's hidden, man. It's a treasure. Again, we don't know if it's true until it happens. But for right now, I mean, I count knowing America is Babylon as a treasure. I consider flat Earth a treasure. I consider Black Jesus a treasure. All these things are not for everybody, and I'm glad I'm aware of these things. I would not want to be ignorant to these things, because to me they're very precious and they're not for everybody. And then that in and of itself makes it valuable. Just like things here on earth, if they're scarce, there's not many of them. It's valuable. It's a treasure. So that's you and others. We're very fortunate, and to have stumbled across these truths. All right, guys. Sorry, I'm like kind of rambling, but I'll catch up with you guys next weekend, man. It's good to see you. And Sean G, good to have you around, man. I appreciate you letting me in on some of your hangouts and all that. Voynich, good chatting with you. And Manny, the mind of Manny, the hockey prodigy. And Mies Kang was here earlier, so shout out to him, man. It's always good hearing from you guys. Yeah, ETT, I'll do that, man. I'll make that I'll put that on my to-do list for this week, and then if I feel comfortable with it next week or the one after. Yeah. So if you ever wanted to join on the Hangout, I can send you a link, or if you prefer typing, however you want to do it, we can go through Job and just read it and then talk through it, and then however you want to do it. But I'll read it this week and then I'll make some notes, and then to me, it's these kind of things are, it's scary to think that these things are not like theoretical anymore. Like ETT's talking about studying hell, and then earlier he brings up a verse saying that death and hell are going to be cast in the lake of fire, and we believe that that's America getting nuked. So that literally could be like soon. I'm talking like this year, next year, year after. Like these verses that we're discussing, talking about what they mean and all that, could literally, we could see them. Like it's incredible to think that. So yeah, no, that's cool. Whatever. However you want to do it. I just didn't want to relegate you to just typing. If you have, not even next weekend, but anytime in the future. This is through the Google Hangouts through YouTube. So it's easy to add people to the call. Yeah, and I'm gonna keep trying to brainstorm flat Earth stuff and all that. All right, so ETT, we're gonna end off with a couple good ones here. Habakkuk 2:2 says, And the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. Okay. And then 2nd Esdras 5:1-2. Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord. And then verse 2. And cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. Yeah, that's an amazing thing to think, that anybody, whoever those people are that prophesy falsely or correctly, and hopefully we are one of them, that God is literally putting words in their mouth. That's an amazing thing, man. All right, Voynich, see you, buddy. Have a good night, man. And yeah, ETT, thanks for those verses, man. Those were right on point. So, may these words, may we share them humbly, and, may they manifest according to the will of God. Have a good night, guys. Take care.